Chapter 8:14. In the entire ancient sacred sect, there were a total of 480 people who were qualified to receive the heritage inheritance. These 480 people were also divided into different grades and rank. For example, Shao Chun had the treatment of a holy son, so the heritage he received was almost no different from that of the saints. Under Saint Huiyun's announcement, everyone nodded respectfully. Then, Randeng Kozai opened the entrance to the heritage world. A light door appeared in front of everyone, and under the guidance of the saints, everyone entered this small world. This small world was not very large, and its structure was very simple. There was only a very huge black mountain. This black mountain was where the heritage of the ancient sacred sect was located. From the foot of the mountain to the top, one could see many caves. There were exactly 480 caves, and each cave represented a heritage. Of course, from the foot of the mountain to the peak, the deeper one went, the more caves there would be. Of course, the heritage within would also be weaker. According to the difference in rank, those core disciples and personal disciples could only get the caves below the mountainside. Of course, this was enough for them to be excited. As for Shao Chun and the others, the prospective saints were allowed to stay in the caves near the mountainside, while the saints were allowed to stay in the caves at the top of the mountain. According to the arrangement of the caves, the disciples entered their own caves one after another. Soon, the caves at the mountainside were allocated, and at this time, only Shao Chun, the holy sons, and the saints were left. Everyone climbed all the way to the mountainside, and then the holy sons took the lead to enter their caves. Then, Shao Chun, Qingyu, and the other holy sons, as well as the saints, entered their own caves one after another. As soon as they entered the cave, there were many talismans on the rock walls. At the same time, in the center of the cave, there was a golden futon. Don't underestimate this golden futon. It was definitely a treasure that could make all the warriors on the Tianhe continent go crazy. After looking around, Shao Chun found that the layout of the cave was very simple. Except for the golden futon and the talismans on the rock walls, there was nothing else. Just a golden praying mat was the heritage of the ancient sacred sect? Of course, that was not the case. He slowly walked over to the golden praying mat and sat down cross-legged. Just as Shao Chun sat on the cattail hassock, a beam of golden light descended from above, shrouding Shao Chun in an instant. Enveloped by the golden light, Shao Chun could feel an enormous amount of pure energy gushing into his body. Shao Chun's cultivation began to rise rapidly under the assault of this powerful energy, as if he had been forcibly imbued with it. At the same time, in addition to this energy, the golden light seemed to be constantly imbuing Shao Chun with his understanding of martial arts. This was the heritage of the ancient sacred sect. It was the heritage of the ancient sacred sect that was accumulated bit by the ancestors of the ancient sacred sect. Within this golden light, there was not only a vast amount of pure energy, but there was also the comprehension of the martial Tao left behind by the previous generations of the ancient saint sect. With this two-pronged approach, those who received the inheritance would be able to break through their cultivation realms even faster without any side effects. It was indeed a very terrifying power, but it should be known that after this heritage was opened, the ancient sacred sect would not have any heritage for at least the next few thousand years. They would have to slowly accumulate it from the beginning. Shao Chun closed his eyes tightly. He didn't need to do anything. His cultivation naturally began to rise continuously. At the same time, his comprehension of the martial Tao was also constantly deepening. Not only Shao Chun, but the others were also the same at this time. However, except for Shao Chun, the holy sons, and the various saints, the others received the silver light. Obviously, it was not as good as the golden light of Shao Chun and the others. When everyone began to receive the heritage, Randeng Kozai left the ancient sacred sect. He didn't receive the heritage because it was useless. Randeng Kozai's cultivation had already reached the peak of the sage-accomplished realm. If he wanted to break through, he couldn't rely on spirit chi to succeed. It could be said that no matter how much Randang Kozii cultivated, it was impossible for him to break through to the quasi-saint realm. Only by obtaining the source energy could Randang Kozii advance further. Unfortunately, the source energy of the Sky River continent had been exhausted. Therefore, Randang Kozii didn't receive the heritage. To receive the heritage, it would take a long time. It would take at least a year. While everyone was receiving the heritage, another shocking thing happened in the Sky River continent. That was, the Sacred Een sect chose to completely seal off the Sacred Een province. All the connections between the Sacred Een province and the other 3 provinces were cut off. All the transmission arrays in the Sacred Een sect's territory that led to the other 3 provinces were destroyed. Moreover, the cultivators of the other 3 provinces were prohibited from entering the Sacred Een province. This action of the Sacred Een sect naturally made all the cultivators of the Sky River continent puzzled. At the same time, many people faintly sensed that a storm was coming. They chose to completely cut off all connections with the outside world. As such, the people of the other 3 provinces naturally didn't know about the Sacred Een sect. Regarding this action of the Sacred Een sect, the Ancient Sacred Sect, the Sky Sacred Sect, and the Sun Sacred Sect also chose to ignore it and didn't do anything. Of course, Randang Kozii and the others naturally knew the reason for this action of the Sacred Een sect. Since they couldn't destroy the Blood Door, the only thing Randang Kozii and the others could do was to prepare actively and do their best to deal with the invasion of the demon race. Time passed slowly. In the blink of an eye, several months had passed. The Sky River continent once again fell into a short period of peace. However, this kind of peace felt like the calm before the storm. Although nothing had happened yet, the atmosphere of the Sky River continent had unknowingly become more and more tense. Under this quiet and oppressive atmosphere, the heritage of the 3 major divine sects ended one after another. On the side of the Ancient Sacred Sect, the first to end their heritage were the core disciples and personal disciples. The heritage they had received wasn't much to begin with. Therefore, the duration of their heritage was naturally shorter. In a year's time, the personal disciples and core disciples ended their heritage. After a year, the progress of these disciples had shocked everyone. Even the weakest one had at least increased his cultivation by 1 major realm. Moreover, it wasn't just the increase in cultivation. The disciples had also made considerable progress in other aspects. It could be seen that a year of heritage had caused a qualitative change to the disciples. Please collect, please vote, please recommend. Chapter 8:15. In the short span of a single year, all of these core disciples and direct disciples who were fortunate enough to obtain the inheritance had undergone tremendous changes. Following their appearance, the entire Ancient Sacred Sect was in an uproar. Many disciples were filled with envy in their hearts. A foundation inheritance was at least equivalent to 10 years of hard work, and this was only the lowest level of foundation inheritance. It was hard to imagine how terrifying the foundation inheritance of the prospective Holy Son and Holy Son would be. At the very least, it would be much stronger than theirs. They were completely envious to the bone. Regarding this, while these personal disciples and core disciples were secretly excited, they were also envious of the prospective Holy Sons and Holy Sons. There was nothing they could do. Comparing goods with goods would result in throwing them away, and comparing people with people would result in death. In the eyes of the ordinary disciples, they were already considered very lucky people. However, compared to the prospective Holy Son and the Holy Son, the benefits that they had obtained were not considered much. After the first batch of personal disciples and core disciples finished their heritage inheritances, the prospective Holy Sons also finished their heritage inheritances 3 months later. Du Yi and the other prospective saints left the small world of heritage. However, they discovered that Shao Chen was not among them. For a moment, the 4 of them guessed something. Being able to become a prospective saint, they were naturally not stupid. Du Yi's face was gloomy and his heart was filled with jealousy. Damn it! How could this guy obtain the heritage of a saint? At the same time, there was only one possibility since Xiao Chen had not come out. The saints had upgraded Xiao Chen's heritage to the level of a saint. A prospective saint had obtained the heritage of a saint. One could imagine how much importance the saints of the ancient saint sect had placed on Xiao Chen. Du Yi was not the only one who was filled with jealousy. The other three candidates were the same. However, jealousy was jealousy, and there was nothing they could do. Although they were candidates, they could not influence the decision of the saints, and they did not dare to raise any objections. After a year and 3 months, most of the people had finished their heritage. Only the saints and saints were still receiving their heritage. Time passed by slowly. At the same time, Xiao Chen, who was still receiving the heritage in the cave, had improved from the beginner of the Dao transformation realm to the complete of the Dao King realm in the past year. Such improvement could only be described as terrifying. Even Xiao Chen didn't expect that he would be able to advance by 1 major realm and 4 minor realms. Including the 2 years he had spent in the 100 Spirit World, Xiao Chen had advanced from the Dao Gate realm to the Dao King realm in just 3 years and 3 months. No one would believe it if they had not witnessed it with their own eyes. Of course, it was naturally difficult to accept the increase of 1 major realm and 4 minor realms under normal circumstances. However, with the help of the inheritance, it was not impossible. After all, this was the foundation that the ancient saint sect had accumulated over thousands of years. If they couldn't even make such a small improvement, then the so-called foundation inheritance would be useless. Moreover, Xiao Chen was not the only one who had such a huge improvement this time. All the disciples who received the heritage had at least improved by 1 major realm. In this way, Xiao Chen's improvement was not so exaggerated. When Xiao Chen's cultivation base had completely stabilized at the great perfection of the Dao King realm, the inheritance of the saints, Chun Yu, and the other saints had also ended. At this point, the inheritance of the ancient sacred sect had already lasted for a year and a half. However, even though Chen Yu and the others had finished passing on their heritage, Xiao Chen still did not come out. He sat cross-legged in the cave. Not only did the golden light that shrouded Xiao Chen not disappear, but it even became more intense at this moment. Everyone had finished their heritage, except for Xiao Chen. Knowing this, the saints knew that Randang Kozai was giving Xiao Chen preferential treatment. He was gathering the last bit of heritage on Xiao Chen, hoping that he could make further progress. Master really does favor this kid, Saint Huiyun chuckled in the sacred hall. After this inheritance, this brat should be able to aim for the position of the Holy Sun, right? Hearing this, Saint Qingju smiled and added, "Perhaps that's exactly what Master thinks. That's why he's giving him special treatment. After all, the other saints are far too ahead of him. If he doesn't receive special treatment, it'll be very difficult for him to catch up to the other saints," Saint Tianfeng smiled. "From the looks of it, our ancient sacred sect will have 1 less quasi-holy son and 1 more holy son." Saint Kuangli smiled. All the saints could guess what Randang Kozai was thinking. There was nothing wrong with that. The reason why Randang Kozai was giving Xiao Chen special treatment was so that Xiao Chen could catch up to the other saints as soon as possible. On the one hand, it would be more useful in the upcoming battle. On the other hand, it would give Xiao Chen more power to protect himself in the upcoming battle. Only Xiao Chen was still receiving the heritage in the miniature world of heritage. At the same time, Randang Kozai stood proudly on the peak of the mountain. He looked at the cave where Xiao Chen was in with a complicated expression. "I never thought that this kid would be Xiao Xing's junior. Whatever, I'll give you the last bit of heritage. It's useless to keep it anyway. If we can't stop the invasion of the demon race, it'll be useless. Why don't I give it all to you?" Randang Kozai had left the ancient saint sect to go to the heavenly saint sect. There, he saw Shao Xing and learned about the relationship between Shao Xing and Shao Chun. He didn't expect that Shao Xing still had a wisp of remnant soul left in the world, and now it was possible for him to be resurrected. This time, Randang Kozai went to the Heavenly Saints sect at the request of the Ice Lotus Ancient Saint to deliver a treasure of the Ancient Saints sect to Shao Xing. This treasure was also the key to Shao Xing's resurrection. At this time, Shao Xing was refining the two treasures, one from the Heavenly Saints sect and the other from the Ancient Saints sect. As long as he succeeded in refining them, Shao Xing could completely make up for his remnant soul and transform it into a complete soul. Then, he could start to rebuild his body. Shao Xing's matter made Randang Kozai very happy. After all, if Shao Xing could be successfully resurrected, then the Sky River continent would have another ancestor-level saint, and he would be the strongest person in the saint realm. In this way, the Sky River continent would have more confidence in facing the demon race. It was also because of this reason that Randang Kozai didn't hesitate to give the treasure of the Ancient Saints sect to Shao Xing, helping him to successfully resurrect. Unaware of these things, Shao Chun was still receiving the heritage inheritance. This time, the heritage inheritance was much richer than before. His cultivation, which had been gradually immersed, also showed signs of a breakthrough. Please collect, please vote, please recommend. Chapter 8:16. He gave Shao Chen special treatment, and with the help of the Foundation inheritance, Shao Chen's cultivation, which had been gradually stagnating, had reached the limit again. He had already reached the peak of the Tao King realm, and if he broke through again, he would reach the Tao Master realm. If he succeeded, it meant that Shao Chun had advanced by 2 realms from the Foundation inheritance. What kind of concept was this? It should be known that even holy sons like Chen Yu had not been able to break through 2 realms. Of course, with the cultivation of holy sons like Chen Yu, no matter how heaven-defying the Foundation inheritance was, it was impossible for them to break through too much. After all, the further they advanced, the more difficult it was to break through and the more spiritual power they needed to break through. Therefore, although the Foundation inheritance Chen Yu and the other holy sons had obtained was no different from that of saints, in terms of cultivation improvement, they were actually not as good as the personal and core disciples. With the same amount of spiritual power, Chen Yu and the others could only break through 1 small realm, but the personal and core disciples could break through 2 or even 3 small realms. In this way, it was not surprising. The saints were even more exaggerated. They had also obtained the Foundation inheritance, but more than half of them had only broken through 1 small realm. It was even more difficult to break through after reaching the saint realm. As for Shao Chen, he was a variable. First of all, Shao Chen's cultivation was much lower than that of the holy sons. When he received the Foundation inheritance, Shao Chen's cultivation was actually similar to that of a holy son's. However, Shao Chen had obtained the Foundation inheritance at the level of a holy son. In addition, with the special care of Randang Kozai, Shao Chen was able to make such great progress. He directly broke through from the beginner Tao transformation realm to the peak of the Tao King realm, and was still breaking through to the beginner Tao Master realm. Everyone had finished the Foundation inheritance except for Shao Chen. At the same time, the Foundation inheritance of the ancient sacred sect not only improved cultivation, but also had a great effect on the body and soul. Of course, it was unrealistic to rely on this heritage to break through the tempered battle body. This was because every level of the tempered battle body had rigid requirements. For example, to break through from the first level of the Golden Armor realm to the second level of the Jade Organs realm, one had to undergo the baptism of heavenly fire. Without the baptism of the heavenly fire, no matter how strong the body was, it was impossible to break through to the second level of the Jade Organs realm. Therefore, Shao Chen did not have much hope for the breakthrough of the tempered battle body. Randang Kozai's care for Shao Chen made some saints jealous. All the saints thought that Randang Kozai would definitely accept Shao Qin as his disciple. However, no one knew that Randang Kozai had already given up on this idea. It was because of Shao Xing. Since Shao Qin was Shao Xing's junior and was personally taught by Shao Xing, Randang Kozai naturally gave up on the idea of accepting Shao Qin as his disciple. He also admitted that it would be better for Shao Xing to teach Shao Qin. This was because if Shao Xing's strength recovered, Randang Kozai would not be a match for him. Therefore, it was probably the best choice to let Shao Qin follow Shao Xing. Although he gave up the idea of accepting Shao Qin as his disciple, Randang Kozai still spared no effort to support Shao Qin. Time passed day by day. After everyone had completed the heritage inheritance, another half a year had passed. In this way, it had been 2 years since the heritage inheritance was opened. After 2 years, Shao Qin had completed his heritage inheritance. His body and soul had been greatly strengthened. At the same time, his cultivation had undergone earth-shaking changes. He had directly broken through from the beginner Dao transformation realm to the beginner Dao master realm, which was 2 whole realms. The golden light slowly disappeared. When Shao Qin opened his eyes, he felt as if he was in a dream. Advancing 2 major realms in 2 years was something that was simply unimaginable even in his dreams. Just think about it. In the Tiantian continent, the super experts of the Dao Master Realm were the top figures of the major sections. For example, in the 9 Cloud Palace, the super experts of the Dao Master Realm were the peak masters of the various peaks. Now, Shao Qin had broken through to the Dao Master Realm at such a young age. If this was in the Tiantian continent, it would probably be a legend. Of course, to be able to break through to the Dao Master Realm so quickly, it was all thanks to the cultivation environment of the Tianhe continent and the heritage inheritance of the ancient sacred sect. It was no exaggeration to say that this heritage inheritance had saved Shao Qin at least 20 years of bitter cultivation. It could be seen how important opportunities were on the path of cultivation. This was also why it was impossible for any cultivator to cultivate behind closed doors. Instead, they would constantly go out and travel, because only by going out would one be able to encounter one's own opportunities. While blindly cultivating behind closed doors, although it seemed to be painstaking, to put it bluntly, it could only be foolishly diligent and not worth advocating. Shao Qin's understanding of martial arts had deepened greatly during the period of his cultivation breakthrough and the inheritance of the heritage. Inside the golden light, there was not only pure and enormous energy, but also the understanding of martial arts that the ancestors of the ancient sacred clan had on their martial arts. These martial arts comprehensions were left behind by the special means of the ancestors of the ancient sacred sect. Through the heritage inheritance, they were instilled into Shao Qin in the most intuitive way. It was no exaggeration to say that the value of these martial arts comprehensions was not inferior to Shao Qin's cultivation breakthrough. However, it was a pity that this heritage inheritance did not contain the knowledge of martial arts. Of course, this was normal. First of all, there was no need to use the heaven-level martial arts in the heritage inheritance. As for the holy-level martial arts, even if they were instilled into Shao Qin and other disciples, it would be useless. Because their cultivation was too low, it was impossible for them to practice it successfully. At least, they had to reach the half-saint realm before they could practice the holy-level martial art. Exhaling a mouthful of foul air, Shao Qin got up. At the same time, Randang Kozai appeared in front of Shao Qin out of thin air. This was the first time that Shao Qin had met Randang Kozai face to face. Although he did not know Randang Kozai's identity, Shao Qin still saluted respectfully. Disciple Shao Qin greets the Holy Master. Although he did not know Randang Kozai's identity, Shao Qin guessed that he should be a saint of the ancient sacred sect. Hearing this, Randang Kozai said with a smile, "I'm the ancestor of the ancient sacred sect. Little guy, you're not bad. You've broken through 2 realms in 2 years. You didn't waste this heritage inheritance. However, although your cultivation has improved, there is still a certain distance between you and the Holy Son. You can't relax. You need to comprehend the power of law as soon as possible. Randang Kozai did not conceal his identity. At the same time, he also told Xiao Qin not to be arrogant and complacent because of the rapid improvement of his cultivation. Compared to other holy sons, Xiao Qin still had some gap. If he wanted to catch up as soon as possible, he must comprehend the power of law. The holy sons and holy daughters on the Tianhe continent had a rigid condition, that was, they must comprehend the power of law before their cultivation reached the half-saint realm. This was a prerequisite for becoming a holy son or holy daughter. Of course, only by comprehending the power of law could the holy sons and holy daughters be able to fight against opponents of a higher realm and completely crush their peers. Please collect, please vote, please recommend. Chapter 8:17. Of course, the ancient sage sect would definitely fully support Xiao Qin in comprehending the power of law. Otherwise, without the support of huge resources, it would be impossible for Xiao Qin to successfully comprehend the power of law before becoming a half-saint even if he was talented. He was very optimistic about Xiao Qin. Hearing this, Xiao Qin bowed and thanked him. Seeing this, Randang Kozai smiled slightly and said, "Well, I originally planned to accept you as my disciple, but since you are Xiao Xing's junior, he will teach you." Randang Kozai did not avoid anything and bluntly told him about his meeting with Xiao Xing. Hearing that Randang Kozai had already met with Xiao Xing, Xiao Qin was slightly stunned, but he quickly recovered. Since Xiao Xing could meet with Randang Kozai and expose his existence, it should mean that Randang Kozai should be a trustworthy person. After saying a few words about Xiao Xing, Randang Kozai finally said lightly, "By the way, little guy, if you have the confidence, you can challenge the first candidate Holy Son." Randang Kozai asked Xiao Qin to challenge the first candidate Holy Son. Without waiting for Xiao Qin's reply, Randang Kozai directly disappeared on the spot. Xiao Qin did not know what Randang Kozai meant, but to be honest, he was really confident that he could get the first candidate Holy Son. Although there was still a certain gap between him and the holy sons and holy daughters, Xiao Qin was completely fearless in the face of the candidate holy sons and holy daughters. In fact, Xiao Qin's current strength should be between the candidate holy son and the holy son. He was stronger than the candidate holy son, but weaker than the holy son. Randang Kozai's inexplicable words actually had another meaning. That was, the other candidates of the ancient sage sect were now also preparing to challenge Xiao Qin. As for why, the reason was very simple. Jealousy. Just think about it. They were all prospective holy sons, and Xiao Qin was only the fifth prospective holy son. However, Xiao Qin's heritage this time was actually at the level of a holy son. Not only that, Randang Kozai had even specially given Xiao Qin special treatment. How could they not be jealous? Therefore, the other four candidates of the ancient saint sect all wanted to challenge Xiao Qin to prove that they were stronger than Xiao Qin. This was a healthy competition within the sect. The saints of the ancient sacred sect were happy to see this, so they naturally did not stop it. Of course, the four prospective saints clearly did not expect Xiao Qin to gain so many benefits from the heritage inheritance this time. It could be said that he was no longer the same as he was in the past. Xiao Qin did not pay too much attention to the first prospective holy son. Now, his goal was to become a holy son. With the departure of Randang Kozai, Xiao Qin also chose to leave the small world of heritage. After returning to the ancient sacred sect, the small world of heritage was immediately closed. In the next few thousand years, the small world of heritage was completely wasted. It would take at least another few thousand years of accumulation before it could be opened again. After 2 years, Xiao Qin appeared again. Although Xiao Qin did not deliberately do anything, it still caused a stir in the ancient sacred sect. It could not be helped. Even the Holy Son and the other saints had finished their heritage half a year ago. However, Shao Chun was half a year longer than them. Therefore, many disciples of the ancient sacred sect had no choice but to pay attention to him. Because many disciples had been paying close attention to Shao Chun, the moment Shao Chun appeared, the news quickly spread. All the disciples were guessing how much heritage Shao Chun had obtained this time. Of course, Shao Chun did not know and did not care about this. He directly returned to the first sacred palace. Now that his heritage had finished, Shao Chun planned to wait for the arrival of Qin Shuru and see when Shao Xing could finish his business in the heavenly sacred sect. When the time came, he would go to the 100,000 fire territory of the Sacred Sun province to see if he could break through to the second level of the refined battle body, the Jade Organs realm. After that, he would return to the ancient sacred sect and comprehend the power of law according to Randang Kozai. He planned to rest for a few days and wait for the arrival of Qin Shi. However, Shao Chen's idea was obviously not going to be realized. He only rested in his cave residence for a day. Early the next morning, a young man took the initiative to visit him. The young man was called Yuan Lin. Shao Chen knew him. He was the first candidate of the ancient sacred sect. Besides Yuan Lin, Du Yi was also accompanying him. Shao Chen chose to ignore Du Yi when the two candidates came together. He looked at Yuan Lin and said with a smile, "Thank you. Welcome, senior brother Yuan Lin. What's the matter?" Shao Chen did not have much interaction with Yuan Lin, so there was no enmity between them. Therefore, Shao Chen was polite. Of course, as the first candidate, Yuan Lin had a high prestige in the ancient sacred sect. Many disciples even recognized that Yuan Lin was the only one among the candidates who had a chance to become a sacred son. He was much stronger than Du Yi. In response to Shao Chen's inquiry, Yuan Lin said indifferently, "Junior brother Shao, I heard that your heritage is at the level of a sacred son. It seems that the sacred sages think highly of you. Senior brother is not talented, so I would like to exchange a few moves with you." He did not beat around the bush and directly stated his intention. Hearing that Yuan Lin was here to challenge him, Shao Chen smiled indifferently. However, after thinking about it, he quickly understood what Yuan Lin meant. This guy was jealous of him and felt that he was not worthy of being valued by the sacred sages. Since someone took the initiative to challenge him, and it was the first candidate, Shao Chen naturally would not refuse and immediately agreed. Hearing this, Yuan Lin did not beat around the bush and directly told Shao Chen that the two of them would fight at the ancient sacred sect's martial arts practice field tomorrow. After exchanging a few simple words, Yuan Lin left with Du Yi. After the two of them left, the news of the battle between Yuan Lin and Shao Chen spread quickly. After receiving the news, Chen Yu personally came to Shao Chen's cave abode. Without waiting for Fei Mei and the other ladies to greet him, Chen Yu directly found Shao Chen and strode into the courtyard. Before Shao Chen could say anything, Chen Yu laughed loudly. "Junior brother Shao, I heard that you have a battle with Yuan Lin? Yuan Lin is not a trash like Du Yi. After receiving the heritage, his strength has risen to the great circle of the Tao King realm. You have to be careful," Chen Yu said to himself. However, before he finished, he suddenly stared at Shao Chen as if he had seen a ghost. His expression became extremely interesting. After a long while, he screamed as if someone had stepped on his tail. "Oh my God, junior brother Shao, your cultivation. What the hell?" Initially, Chen Yu was worried that Shao Chen might be too reckless. After all, Yuan Lin did not become the first candidate of the ancient sacred sect for nothing. But now, Chen Yu was completely stunned. Shao Chen's cultivation had already reached the Tao Master realm. An increase of 2 whole realms. Only God knew how much benefit Shao Chen had received from the heritage. Please collect, vote, recommend. Chapter 8:18. Originally, Chen Yu was worried that Shao Chen was no match for Yuan Lin. But at this moment, Chen Yu felt that he was worrying for nothing. Xiao Chen had already reached the initial Tao Master realm. It would be a piece of cake for him to defeat Yuan Lin. Chen Yu had never doubted Xiao Chen's battle strength. He was even sure that Xiao Chen was not weaker than anyone in the same realm, including the Holy Sons. There were two differences between Xiao Chen and the Holy Sons. One was the power of law, and the other was the cultivation. Now, Xiao Chen's cultivation had reached the initial Tao Master realm, which was higher than Yuan Lin's. Therefore, Yuan Lin had no chance of winning. Chen Yu would never believe that Yuan Lin could defeat Xiao Chen. It was not that he looked down on Yuan Lin, but Xiao Chen was too abnormal. Moreover, his physical strength was so strong that he was not weaker than those body cultivators. What was more, Xiao Chen had condensed the 8-edged Taoist gate, while Yuan Lin's Taoist gate was only the 7-edged Taoist gate. He had an overwhelming advantage in all aspects. How could Yuan Lin win? Surprised by Xiao Chen's rapid progress, Chen Yu came to his senses after a while. He came to Xiao Chen with a wry smile, sat down opposite Xiao Chen, and scolded him with a smile. I was worried for nothing. Look at you now, there should be no problem for you to defeat Yuan Lin. Chen Yu forcefully swallowed all his worries back down. In the end, he could only scold with a smile. Hearing Chen Yu's words, Xiao Chen also said with a smile, Senior brother Chen Yu, you don't have to be like this. It's just defeating Yuan Lin. Xiao Chen did not care about defeating Yuan Lin at all. In addition to the 2 years he had spent cultivating in the 100 Spirits realm, Xiao Chen's strength had undergone earth-shaking changes in just 4 years. He had completely made up for the gap in cultivation that was once behind the Sans-to-Be and Sans-to-Be's cultivation, and had even surpassed them. Now, Xiao Chen's goal was to become a Holy Son. As for other things, Xiao Chen did not care too much. Perhaps this was what people meant by strength represented vision. Xiao Chen's strength was enough to crush the holy sons and holy daughters, so he naturally did not care about them anymore. Chen Yu chatted with Qing Yu. Of course, good wine was indispensable. It was rare that Yi Su did not come with them, so Chen Yu could drink to his heart's content. The two of them drank until late at night. Then, Xiao Chen personally sent Chen Yu back to his cave. After sending Chen Yu off, Xiao Chen whispered to himself, He's already at the Tao Emperor realm? Looks like there's still a big gap. This time, Xiao Chen finally saw through Chen Yu's cultivation. Since Chen Yu had broken through to the Tao Emperor realm, then the other 3 holy sons had probably broken through to the Tao Emperor realm as well. There was still a big gap to catch up to the holy sons. At the very least, Xiao Chen still had to work hard. Just as Randing Kozai said, he could not relax. After returning to his cave, Xiao Chen had a good sleep. After cultivating continuously for 2 years, Xiao Chen planned to relax and not think about cultivation for the next few days. The night passed in silence. He did not even think about the battle with Yuan Lin, because victory was already within his grasp. The next morning, Xiao Chen was woken up by Lu Zhu. Young master, a young lady called Qin Shuru is looking for you. She seems to be a disciple of the Heavenly Saint sect. When he heard Qin Shuru, Xiao Chen shuddered and completely woke up. He originally thought that this little girl would probably only arrive in a few days. He never imagined that she would arrive today and even inform him in advance. Lu Zhu, Fei Mei, and the other 2 girls did not know Qin Shuru's identity. Soon, after a simple wash, Xiao Chen hurried to the main hall and saw Qin Shuru sitting in the main hall with a glance. She was still wearing a white dress, and her temperament was still extremely cold. Everything was normal, but her cultivation had improved greatly and had already reached the peak of the Tao Emperor realm. It seemed that ancient Saint Ice Lotus had taken special care of Qin Shuru. Otherwise, Qin Shuru would not have improved so much. The heritage of the 3 great saint sects had been opened one after another, and many disciples had improved greatly. Walking quickly into the main hall, Xiao Chen said with a smile, Shuru, Why didn't you tell me you were coming? What? Did I disturb you? Well, who is young Master Xiao? Look at your maids, they are all as beautiful as fairies. It seems that I came at the wrong time, Qin Shuru said coldly. His words were filled with jealousy and a trace of resentment. It was probably because of Lu Zhu, Fei Mei, and the other two girls. The four girls did not know Qin Shuru, and naturally, Qin Shuru did not know them either. Qin Shuru was already annoyed when he was stopped by the four girls. In addition, the four girls were beautiful to begin with. Although they were not as beautiful as Qin Shuru, they were still considered first-class beauties. Therefore, it was not strange that Qin Shuru was jealous. Sensing the jealousy in Qin Shuru's words, Xiao Chen smiled embarrassedly. Then, he called out the four girls and introduced them to each other. This is my wife, Qin Shuru. She will be your madam from now on. Hearing Xiao Chen's words, the four girls bowed respectfully and said, Greetings, madam. Their attitudes were very respectful. Seeing this, Xiao Chen smiled apologetically and came to Qin Shuru's side. Shuru, they are all my maids. It's nothing. Don't think too much. Come, let me introduce them to you. They will be responsible for serving you from now on. After introducing each other and coaxing them for a long time, Qin Shuru's resentment gradually dissipated. In fact, this was not a big deal. After all, the four girls were Xiao Chen's maids. It was fine as long as they talked about it. Qin Shuru walked around the cave. Although Xiao Chen's cave was not as good as ancient Saint Ice Lotus Cave, the environment was still beautiful. As they strolled and chatted, it was already noon. At this time, Elder Master Bai found Xiao Chen. He first bowed to Qin Shuru and said, Madam. Then, he looked at Xiao Chen and said, Madam. Young Master, it's almost time. It's time to go to the martial arts arena. Today was the day of his battle with Yuan Lin. Hearing Elder Master Bai's words, Xiao Chen looked at the time and nodded. Okay, let's go. He did not hide the fact that Qin Shuru had a battle with Yuan Lin. After briefly explaining, Xiao Chen led Qin Shuru out of the cave and rushed directly to the martial arts arena of the ancient Saint sect. As soon as they left the cave, before they even walked out of the first sacred palace, Xiao Chen bumped into Chen Yu and Yi Su. Chen Yu looked at Xiao Chen and said with a smile, Let's go, junior brother Xiao. I made a special trip today to cheer you on. I'm bored. Chen Yu also wanted to watch the battle. Hearing this, Xiao Chen said helplessly, This guy was really bored. He already knew what his cultivation level was, so why did he make a special trip to watch? Please add me to your collection, monthly vote, recommend me. Chapter 819. As the Holy Sun, Xiao Chen had nothing to do all day long. Regarding this, Chen Yu didn't have any objections. But even if you're lazy, that's your own business and no one else can interfere. But don't always set me up. Whenever he encountered any trouble, Chen Yu's first thought would be to push it to Xiao Chen and let Xiao Chen run around and tire himself out while he hid in the ancient sacred sect to slack off and enjoy life. Upon hearing Xiao Chen's soft grumbles, Chen Yu wasn't angry. Instead, the smile on his face widened and he turned to Qin Shuru as though they were close friends. Yo, this beautiful lady must be my sister-in-law, right? Hello, my name is Chen Yu and I'm Xiao Chen's senior brother. Upon hearing Chen Yu's words, Qin Shuero blushed, but she still nodded slightly to indicate that she acknowledged her relationship with Xiao Chen. However, at this moment, Xiao Chen interjected from the side. Shuru, you don't have to care about this guy. He's the first holy son of our ancient sacred sect and is in charge of the first sacred palace. But to put it bluntly, he's just a hands-off shopkeeper. By the way, don't get too close to him. Be careful of being set up by him one day. He's just a scumbag. As the time spent with Xiao Chen and Chen Yu increased, the two of them also became more casual with their conversations. Of course, Chen Yu naturally wouldn't take Xiao Chen's jokes to heart. As expected, as soon as Xiao Chen finished his sentence, Chen Yu immediately retorted, I'm a scumbag? Junior brother Xiaochen, you're making me very sad. Can't you see that I'm doing this for your own good? I'm doing this to train you. It's really… Sigh, I'm going to cry if I say too much. Is it for my own good or because you're lazy? Xiaochen replied with a chuckle. While bickering with Chen Yu out of boredom, the four of them soon arrived at the training grounds of the ancient sage sect. It was a very big martial arts arena, but it was packed with people today. Many disciples of the ancient sacred sect had gathered here for no other reason than to witness the battle between Xiaochen and Yuan Lin. The battle between the prospective saints would definitely be extremely attractive. It was rare to see such a thing on a normal day. When Xiaochen and the other three arrived, Yuan Lin was already waiting on the largest arena in the middle. Not only him, but the other three prospective saints, including Du Yi, were also present. Moreover, what Xiaochen did not expect was that Emperor Qing, Hu Fei and the fourth saint, Jiang Yu, were all present. The prospective holy sons and holy sons were all present. Upon seeing this, Chen Yu immediately lectured Xiaochen. How is it? Am I bored now? It was not easy to find an opportunity to attack Xiaochen. Naturally, Chen Yu would not let it go. Hearing this, Xiaochen curled his lips helplessly. To be honest, even he did not expect that a battle with Yuan Lin would attract so many people's attention. Not to mention the ordinary disciples, even the four holy sons were all present. Of course, Xiaochen did not know that the four holy sons were not here for the battle itself, nor for Yuan Lin. To put it bluntly, they were here for Xiaochen alone. After receiving the heritage inheritance for 2 years, the four holy sons were very curious about how much Xiaochen's strength had grown. Therefore, they came personally to see Xiaochen's strength. They did not care about the outcome of the battle. They landed directly on the arena, while Chen Yu led Qin Shuru and Yi Su to the side of the arena, standing with Emperor Qing and the other two. Oh, Emperor Qing, Hu Fei, Jiang Yu, you're here too. Come, let me introduce you. This is Xiaochen's wife, Qin Shuru, an outstanding disciple of the Heavenly Saint sect. Chen Yu said enthusiastically to Emperor Qing and the other two. However, Emperor Qing and the other two ignored him completely, especially Emperor Qing, who said indifferently without giving him any face. Quiet. Among the four holy sons of the ancient saint sect, Emperor Qing was definitely a weirdo. Emperor Qing and the other two had already experienced this, so they naturally chose to ignore Chen Yu. Chen Yu did not care about their disregard. He smiled embarrassedly and then turned his eyes to the arena. Chen Yu was quiet, but when Emperor Qing and the other two looked at Xiaochen, their expressions changed. Their expressions were exactly the same as when Emperor Qing first saw Xiaochen yesterday. The beginning of the Tao Master Realm? The three of them were shocked at the same time. They thought that Xiaochen would make great progress in the past 2 years, but they did not expect that Xiaochen would make such great progress that he actually broke through to the beginning of the Tao Master Realm in one go. After the shock, Emperor Qing was the first to recover. A strange look flashed across his eyes and he said, "It's really surprising. It seems that our ancient saint sect will have a 5th holy son soon." With that, Emperor Qing turned around and left. Seeing this, Chen Yu called out, "Hey, where are you going? The battle is about to start. The result has been decided. There's no need to watch." Hearing Chen Yu's words, Emperor Qing said without looking back. Then he disappeared from the martial arts practice field. He was as arrogant as ever. After seeing Xiaochen's identity, he left directly. Anyway, as Emperor Qing said, the result had been decided. It made no difference whether he watched or not. Emperor Qing left. At the same time, in the arena, Yuan Lin and Xiaochen looked at each other calmly. Yuan Lin took the lead and cupped his hand. "Junior brother Xiaochen, this battle is not for anything else. I just want to see why the holy sages value you so much." Yuan Lin took the initiative to challenge Xiaochen. There was no special purpose. To put it bluntly, he was unwilling to accept the result and jealous. They were all holy sons, but Shao Chen had much more resources than them. Therefore, Yuan Lin wanted to see what was so special about Shao Chen that the holy sages valued him so much. Yuan Lin said without any hesitation. Hearing this, Shao Chen smiled. Yuan Lin was actually not bad. After all, it was normal for him to be jealous and unwilling to accept the result in such a situation. At the very least, Yuan Lin did things in an open and above-board manner. He did not hold a grudge against Yi Futian because of his jealousy. He just wanted to fight Yi Futian head-on to see if Shao Chen was worthy of being valued by all the saints. Shao Chen naturally did not have any hostility towards people who were open and above-board. Even if Yuan Lin took the initiative to challenge him this time, Shao Chen did not think much of it. On the contrary, it made him feel that Yuan Lin was indeed a character. With a smile on his face, Shao Chen said calmly, "Please, senior brother Yuan." The battle was about to break out. For a moment, many disciples in the martial arts practice field fixed their eyes on the arena. All the disciples wanted to see the result of the battle between the two holy sons. They wanted to see who would win and who would lose. They also wanted to see if Shao Chen could create another miracle and take the title of the first holy son. Please collect, vote, recommend. Chapter 820. The battle broke out. As Shao Chen finished speaking, Yuan Lin chose to make the first move. A beam of light flashed from the storage ring in his hand, and a long sword appeared in his hand. Yuan Lin was also a sword cultivator. As he stabbed out with his sword, the tip of the sword flashed and sword intent that had reached the small perfection level gushed out. He was indeed worthy of being ranked first among the candidates. His sword will had already reached the level of small perfection, just like Shao Chen. However, this alone was not enough to threaten Shao Chen. Facing Yuan Lin's first attack, Shao Chen pointed his finger and used the pure June sword finger. A golden sword ray flashed and collided with Yuan Lin's long sword. Immediately, the sword qi wreaked havoc and an invisible wave spread out in all directions. The surrounding space seemed to be sliced apart by this violent sword qi. It was just the first collision, but the surrounding disciples could not help but exclaim, "What a strong sword intent!" Both Shao Chen and Yuan Lin's sword wills were very strong. If it weren't for the fact that the talisman array on the ring had been activated, this simple strike would have destroyed the entire martial arts practice field in an instant. After a head-on collision, the two of them were evenly matched. Yuan Lin did not fall into a disadvantageous position either. Seeing this scene, many disciples became excited. They naturally wanted to see a fierce battle. However, only Chen Yu, Hu Fei, Jiang Yu and the other chosens revealed faint smiles at this moment. With their eyesight, how could they not see that Shao Chen was deliberately saving face for Yuan Lin? Otherwise, Shao Chen could have defeated Yuan Lin in one move. Perhaps Yuan Lin's open challenge did not anger Shao Chen, so Shao Chen also chose to save face for Yuan Lin. Otherwise, if the news of the first candidate being defeated in one move spread, it would indeed be unpleasant. I didn't expect junior brother Shao to be so gentle. Why are you always so fierce to me? Chen Yu said with a smile as he watched the two people fighting fiercely in the arena. Upon hearing his words, Hu Fei and Jiang Yu, who were standing at the side, were speechless. However, both of them were smart enough not to say anything. On the stage, the battle appeared to be intense. However, only a few people knew that this intensity was actually intentional by Shao Chen. Of course, as the person involved, Yuan Lin also felt this at this moment. All this time, Shao Chen had not even drawn his ink dragon sword, and had fought with him barehanded until now. At the same time, Yuan Lin also keenly sensed that Shao Chen seemed to be deliberately holding back his strength since the beginning of the battle. Shao Chen controlled his strength according to his own strength in every attack. To be able to cooperate with others to control his own strength, there could only be one explanation, and that was Shao Chen's strength far surpassed Yuan Lin's. Otherwise, Shao Chen would never be able to do this. Yuan Lin felt that he was being looked down upon, and felt a little indignant. After swinging his sword, Yuan Lin stopped his attack and looked at Xiao Chen with an extremely serious expression. Junior brother Xiao Chen, you are insulting me like this. Show me your true strength. Otherwise, this battle will be meaningless. Xiao Chen's deliberate concession did not make Yuan Lin feel happy at all. In fact, he even felt insulted. As the first candidate, although he was not as good as a chosen, Yuan Lin also had his own pride. Yuan Lin did not want his opponent to deliberately give in to him in a fair battle. Otherwise, he would not have taken the initiative to challenge Xiao Chen. Hearing Yuan Lin's words, Xiao Chen could guess what he was thinking. He smiled helplessly in his heart. It seemed that he had made a fool of himself by trying to be clever. He originally thought that it was a good thing to leave some face for Yuan Lin, but who knew that this would hurt his self-esteem even more. Realizing this, Xiao Chen nodded and said, "Senior brother Yuan, please forgive me. It was my fault just now. I will use my full strength for the next move. Senior brother, please be careful." "Come on," Yuan Lin replied in a deep voice. Since he already knew that his previous concession had hurt Yuan Lin's self-esteem, Xiao Chen naturally would not hold back anymore. As soon as he finished speaking, a terrifying aura soared into the sky. Sensing this aura, Yuan Lin, Du Yi, the other candidates, and the surrounding personal disciples all changed their expressions greatly. Many people whispered in disbelief. How is this possible? The beginning of the Tao sovereign realm, Xiao Chen displayed his cultivation level without holding back. For a moment, all of the disciples were dumbfounded. At the same time, Xiao Chen also slowly pointed his finger and performed the third Tai sword finger of the ninth heaven. He did not use the more lethal Ganjiang sword finger and shadow-bearing sword finger. After all, this was not a life-and-death battle, and Xiao Chen had no intention of seriously injuring Yuan Lin, so the Tai sword finger was enough. Without holding anything back, a thick sword beam flashed forward. In the face of this sword beam's attack, Yuan Lin immediately sensed a terrifying power surging towards him. Even before coming into contact with it, Yuan Lin already had a feeling that he was no match for this attack. Yuan Lin had felt this feeling before, but that was when he was facing the Chosen. Now, facing Xiao Chen, he felt this feeling again. Gritting his teeth, Yuan Lin knew that he was no match for Xiao Chen, but he still chose not to back down. He wanted to find out what kind of ability Xiao Chen had to make the sages think so highly of him. With a furious roar, Yuan Lin also used his strongest martial skill. The two attacks collided, but it was not long before Yuan Lin's martial skill was torn apart by the Tai sword finger. Then, Yuan Lin's entire body was swallowed by the Tai sword finger. In the end, even though Yuan Lin had calmed down and used his full strength, he was still unable to stop Xiao Chen's Tai sword finger. Seeing that the Tai sword finger had swallowed Yuan Lin, Xiao Chen also chose to withdraw his attack. Yuan Lin's figure appeared before everyone's eyes once more. His breathing was a little rushed, and his face was a little pale. It was obvious that he had been injured by the Tai sword finger. Fortunately, his injuries were not too serious. Of course, this was also the reason why Xiao Chen withdrew his attack in time. Yuan Lin looked at Xiao Chen with a complicated gaze. Although he had already guessed that Xiao Chen was very strong, he did not expect Xiao Chen to be so strong. Yuan Lin could not even withstand a single move from him. Without a doubt, if Xiao Chen had used his full strength from the start, he would have been defeated long ago. Taking a deep breath, Yuan Lin took the initiative to clasp his hands toward Xiao Chen and said, "Junior brother, I am sincerely impressed by your strength, and I accept my loss wholeheartedly. From today onwards, the title of the first candidate holy disciple will belong to none other than junior brother Xiao Chen. I believe that no one will disagree with this." Yuan Lin did not become angry because of his loss. In Yuan Lin's eyes, a loss was a loss. There was nothing else to say. However, this kind of loss did not defeat Yuan Lin. On the contrary, it ignited his fighting spirit even more. Xiao Chen's rapid improvement gave Yuan Lin a target to chase after. Begging for your collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 821. A loss was a loss. Yuan Lin didn't get angry because of it, and he didn't hate Xiao Chen. On the contrary, his jealousy towards Xiao Chen disappeared. In fact, Yuan Lin was a very simple person. The reason why he took the initiative to challenge Xiao Chen was because he felt that Xiao Chen wasn't qualified to get so many resources. But now, Xiao Chen proved himself with his strength, so Yuan Lin was relieved. With strength, one could get more resources. This was understandable. It was impossible for the ancient sage sect to spend most of their resources on disciples with mediocre aptitude. That would be a waste. Yuan Lin cupped his hands and bowed to Xiao Chen, then jumped down from the stage and left. Looking at Yuan Lin's back, Xiao Chen smiled slightly. This guy was a bit interesting. His character was good, and he was also straightforward. Not bad, not bad. He was worthy of his title as the first candidate Holy Son. In fact, Xiao Chen didn't think that a person like Yuan Lin, who was straightforward and upright, wasn't an exception among the Holy Sons and Holy Sons. In other words, who could become a Holy Son or Holy Son? Who would be a treacherous villain? Obviously, no one. It was really strange for a treacherous villain to become a Holy Son or Holy Son, because such a person didn't have the determination and perseverance to climb the peak. Naturally, he wouldn't have great achievements. If the Holy Sons and quasi-Holy Sons of the Tianhe continent were all made up of treacherous villains, then their value would be too low. If a group of narrow-minded people who only knew how to use some tricks could become the benchmark of the younger generation of the Tianhe continent, then it would be really strange and inconceivable. Looking at the Holy Sons and Holy Daughters of the Tianhe continent, including the Holy Sons and Holy Daughters, they might have different personalities, but they all had one thing in common, and that was they all had their own pride and perseverance. This was indispensable, and it was also a necessary condition to become a powerhouse. Yuan Lin simply left. Perhaps in the future, he would treat Xiao Chen as his target. Perhaps he would come to challenge Xiao Chen in the future, but he would never use any tricks behind his back. After Yuan Lin left, Xiao Chen leaped down from the stage and came to Qin Shiru's side. He smiled and nodded at Chen Yu, Hu Fei, and Jiang Yu before pulling Qin Shiru out of the arena. It was not until Xiao Chen left that the disciples gradually regained their senses. Soon, a series of gasps could be heard. This battle was really exciting, and at the same time, it was also beyond everyone's expectations. Who would have thought that Xiao Chen's strength would be so strong? It was simply outrageous. In front of Xiao Chen, Yuan Lin didn't have much power to fight back. After this battle, Xiao Chen could be said to have firmly sat on the throne of the first Holy Son. From today onwards, the 5 Holy Sons of the ancient sacred sect had a new ranking. Xiao Chen directly jumped from the 5th Holy Son to the first Holy Son, and Yuan Lin was ranked 2nd. As for the former 4th Holy Son, Du Yi, he was now the 5th Holy Son, ranked last. The person who felt the most uncomfortable about this result was naturally Du Yi. Previously, he didn't take Xiao Chen seriously, but in the blink of an eye, Xiao Chen had far surpassed him. He knew very well that from now on, he no longer had the strength to compete with Xiao Chen in the first sacred palace. As long as Xiao Chen wanted, he could beat Du Yi to the bottom at any time. Sighing softly, Du Yi left the martial arts practice field with a little disappointment. Xiao Chen didn't know about Du Yi's disappointment and despair. At this time, Xiao Chen and Qin Shiru had already arrived at Randang Kozai's cave residence to meet Xiao Xing. That's right, Qin Shiru came back with Xiao Xing this time, and Xiao Xing directly went to Randang Kozai's cave residence after arriving at the ancient sacred sect. Now that everything was settled, Xiao Chen naturally came to find Xiao Xing to discuss the matter of going to the 100,000 Flames territory of the Sun's sacred sect. The breakthrough of the tempered battle body was imminent, and Xiao Chen didn't want to waste any more time. Without any obstruction, Xiao Chen and Qin Shuru smoothly entered Randang Cozy Eye's cave residence. It was also huge, but compared with the cave residence of Ice Lotus Ancient Saint, which seemed to have been frozen for thousands of years, Randang Cozy Eye's cave residence was much more comfortable. Looking around, it was green everywhere, full of spring. In such an environment, one's body and mind seemed to have become tranquil. Tranquil and peaceful, this was the feeling that Randang Cozy Eye's cave residence gave people. They came all the way to a bamboo forest, where Xiao Chen and Qin Shuru met Xiao Xing. After fusing the two treasures of the heavenly sacred sect and the ancient sacred sect, Xiao Xing's remnant soul had been completely repaired and formed a complete soul. It no longer looked so illusory, and at the same time, his strength had recovered a lot. Sit. Xiao Xing was sitting cross-legged on a futon with a short table in front of him. While making tea, Xiao Xing said. Hearing this, Xiao Chen didn't stand on ceremony. He pulled Qin Shuru and sat directly opposite Xiao Xing. They didn't see Randang Cozy Eye. Xiao Xing personally made a cup of tea for them, then looked at Xiao Chen and smiled. It seems that you've gained a lot of benefits. Your cultivation has already reached the Tao Master realm. Hearing this, Xiao Chen smiled and said, Yes, I've gained a lot. But Ancestor, when are we going to Yangxing State? My tempered battle body is about to break through. Xiao Chen didn't deny the benefits he had gained during the heritage period, but now he was more concerned about breaking through the tempered battle body. Hearing this, Xiao Xing smiled, but soon said with a serious face, We'll definitely go to Yangxing State, but before that, I have something to tell you. Xiao Xing looked very serious. Seeing this, Xiao Chen also sat up straight and listened attentively to Xiao Xing's next words. Xiao Xing was going to tell Xiao Chen about the sacred insect and the northern demon continent. The ancestors hadn't announced this matter to the public yet, but Xiao Xing had already told Xiao Chen and Qin Shuru about it. Without hiding or omitting anything, Xiao Xing told Xiao Chen the truth. Hearing this, Xiao Chen frowned tightly, and his face darkened completely. Of course, the reason why Xiao Chen was like this wasn't because of the demon race's invasion or the destruction of the Sky River continent, but because he was worried about Gu Lingyao. Now that Gu Lingyao was still in the sacred insect, and such a thing had happened, then her safety. He didn't dare to imagine what he would do if something happened to Gu Lingyao. After a long silence, Xiao Chen finally said in a low and firm voice, Ancestor, I'm going to the sacred insect. I can't wait any longer. Things have already come to this. I can't let Lingyao continue to stay in the sacred insect. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 822. Originally, when the three sacred sects opened their heritage one after another, the world had already guessed that something big was about to happen. Even Xiao Chen had thought of this problem, but he didn't expect it to be related to the demon race. But this wasn't the main point. What worried Xiao Chen the most was that this matter was related to the sacred insect. Or rather, it could be said that the sacred insect was the cause of this. It was the sacred insect's ancestor who built the blood door that opened the spatial passage to the northern demon continent. Originally, he wanted to become the sacred son of the ancient sacred sect before thinking of a way to rescue Gu Lingyao. But now it was obvious that he couldn't do that. Even if he became the sacred son, he couldn't rescue Gu Lingyao according to his previous plan. Think about it, once the demon race invaded, the sacred insect would be the first to bear the brunt. At that time, if Gu Lingyao was in danger, what would he do? Xiao Chen wasn't a saint. In the face of the impending demon race invasion, Xiao Chen's first thought wasn't to save the world, but to rescue Gu Lingyao. Don't say that Xiao Chen was selfish. If a person didn't even care about his own woman, what else could he do? Even if he wanted to save the Heavenly River continent, he should at least protect the people around him first, not to mention his own woman. Also, there was still no news of his father, Shao Qing. He wasn't in the ancient sacred continent or the heavenly sacred continent. If Shao Qing was also in the sacred Yin continent, what should he do? Were there other heavenly Chen continent cultivators in the sacred Yin continent? This sudden news could be said to have completely caught Shao Chen off guard. All his previous plans and preparations could be said to have gone up in smoke. Truly, his plans could not keep up with the changes. Who would have thought that the Saint Yin sect would go and open up a spatial tunnel to the northern demon mainland? This was just inviting a wolf into the house. Without any plans, Shao Chen's first thought was to go to the sacred Yin continent and rescue Gu Lingyao, as well as the cultivators of the heavenly Chen continent and Shao Qing. Of course, Shao Qing wasn't sure if he was in the sacred Yin continent. Perhaps he was in the sacred Yang continent? Seeing that Shao Chen had become agitated, Shao Xing had already expected this. He said in a low voice, "Kid, calm down. I'm telling you this today because I want to save your little girl." He motioned for Shao Chen to calm down. Impatience would not solve anything. Shao Chen took a deep breath. Shao Xing continued. Actually, Randeng Kozai and the other old ancestors had already discussed the matter with Sacred Yin sect. Although the whole thing was controlled by the Sacred Yin sect, there were hundreds of millions of humans in the Sacred Yin province. Naturally, not all of them would stand on the side of the Sacred Yin sect. Not to mention, the Sacred Yin sect's action was completely crazy. They wanted to destroy the Heavenly River continent. Therefore, the humans in the Sacred Yin province would not agree. Because of this, Randeng Kozai and the others were prepared to evacuate the humans in the Sacred Yin province to the other 3 provinces before the demon race invaded. Then, they would gather the strength of the 3 great sacred sects and destroy the Sacred Yin sect in one fell swoop. That's right, the 3 great sacred sects were prepared to take action. Although the Blood Gate could not be destroyed now, nor could they stop the demon race from descending, they could first eliminate the main culprit, the Sacred Yin sect. As for the cultivators in the Sacred Yin province, they were also members of the Heavenly River continent. They were not lackeys of the Sacred Yin sect. Naturally, the 3 great sacred sects would not abandon them. However, to rescue the hundreds of millions of people in the Sacred Yin province, this was definitely a huge project. Even if the 3 great sacred sects gathered their strength, they would still need to make perfect preparations before they could take action. Shao Xing explained the plan of Randeng Kozai and the other old ancestors to Shao Chen. Of course, Shao Xing did not mention the specifics. In the end, Shao Xing said, "Therefore, the 3 great sacred sects did not abandon the people of the Sacred Yin province. We can cooperate with them and find an opportunity to rescue that little girl. At the same time, we can evacuate the cultivators of the Heavenly Chen continent from the Sacred Yin province. If they cooperated with the 3 great sacred sects, they would have a chance to rescue Gu Lingyao." Hearing this, Shao Chen fell into silence. The 3 great sacred sects had already made preparations. This way, the chances of success would naturally be much higher. However, if they wanted to rescue Gu Lingyao, they would definitely have to go deep into the Sacred Yin sect's headquarters. The degree of difficulty would naturally be higher. However, there was no other choice now. They had to rescue everyone before the demon race invaded. Otherwise, once the demon race descended, the difficulty would only increase. Moreover, it was very likely that accidents would occur. There was no other way. After a long while, Shao Chen nodded his head in agreement. Seeing this, Shao Xing said, "That's right. Kid, you have to know that with your strength alone you can't change anything. If you want to rescue someone, you have to rely on the 3 great sacred sects. If they take action, even if they can't destroy the Sacred Yin sect, they can definitely cripple the Sacred Yin sect. It will be much easier to rescue that little girl." Shao Xing's words finally gave Shao Chen some confidence. The three great sacred sects were prepared to make the first move and destroy the sacred Yin sect. This way, the chances of rescuing Gu Lingyao would be much higher. Seeing that Xiao Chun had gradually calmed down, Xiaoxing finally said, "So, don't think about anything else now. First, prepare to go to the 100,000 fire domain in the Sacred Sun province. Then, try to comprehend the power of laws. When the three great sacred sects are ready, we will attack the sacred Yin sect together. At that time, we will find an opportunity to rescue that little girl." In the current situation, the strength of one person was no longer enough to change the overall situation. Unless it was at the level of Randing Kozai and the others, Xiaoxing's meaning was very clear. He wanted Xiao Chun to cooperate with the three great sacred sects. Of course, the most important thing now was to not waste time and work hard to increase his strength. Hearing Xiaoxing's words, Xiao Chun nodded. This was the only way. Listening to the conversation between Xiaoxing and Xiao Chun, Qin Shuru did not interrupt. In the end, Xiaoxing told Xiao Chun to prepare and leave for the Sacred Sun sect tomorrow. It would be best if he could break through the tempered battle body as soon as possible. This way, Xiao Chun would have more time to comprehend the power of laws. Xiao Chun did not have any objections to Xiaoxing's arrangement. He knew that Xiaoxing was right and nodded in agreement. However, Qin Shuru also wanted to go to the Sacred Sun sect this time. Anyway, there was no point for her to go back to the Sacred Sun sect, so she might as well go with Xiao Chun. Of course, this was also Qin Shuru's request. Xiao Chun did not refuse and quickly decided that Xiao Chun, Xiaoxing, and Qin Shuru would go to the Sacred Sun sect together. They would leave tomorrow. After settling the matter, Xiao Chun and Qin Shuru said goodbye. Xiaoxing also said that he would go find the two of them tomorrow morning, and then they would leave. Please collect, vote, recommend. Chapter 8:23. I was drunk yesterday, and today I woke up with a hangover. I felt dizzy as if I had been stepped on by an elephant. Luckily, I had 2 chapters in stock. I will start with these 2 chapters today. The other 2 chapters will be added tomorrow. Brothers, please give me a day and I will add 6 chapters tomorrow. It's going to be the new year, and there are indeed many things to do during this period. My family needs to buy New Year's goods, and many of my old classmates and friends are coming back from other places for New Year's. I haven't seen them for a year, and they often go out for a get-together. In addition to this wine, it's really not a good thing. Of course, this is my fault. I was wrong. Brothers, please forgive me. Let me rest for today, and I will add 6 chapters tomorrow. Thank you, brothers. Thank you, brothers. Let's not talk about it anymore. I'm going to lie down like a corpse. Sword Master 8 Desolations. Brothers, I was wrong. Please wait a moment. After the content is updated, please refresh the page to get the latest update. Chapter 8:24. After settling the matter with Xiaoxing, Xiao Chun and Qin Shuru returned to the first sacred palace. Knowing that the demon race was about to invade the Heavenly River continent, Xiao Chun naturally understood that time was of the essence and couldn't be wasted. Originally, he planned to relax with Qin Shuru in the ancient sacred sect for a few days, but now it seemed that it was impossible. After returning to his cave residence, he told Elder Master Bai, Fei Mei, and the other 3 girls about his preparations to go to the Sun sacred sect. Originally, Elder Master Bai planned to follow Xiao Chun and protect Xiao Chun along the way, but this time, Xiao Chun didn't agree. After making arrangements for the departure, the night passed silently. Early the next morning, Xiao Chun's group of 3 set off for the Sun sacred sect. They still used the transmission array, but the Sun sacred sect was located to the west of the ancient sacred sect, so they could only use the transmission array to go to the West Sea City, at the border of the Sun sacred sect. Fortunately, because of the demon race's invasion, the 3 sacred sects had allied with each other, and cultivators from the 3 sacred sects could enter and leave at will. This saved Xiao Chun and the others a lot of trouble. Shaoxing was only a saint soul and didn't have a physical body, so he was still hiding in Xiao Chen's body. Through the transmission array, Xiao Chen and Qin Shuru soon appeared in the Sun Sacred Sect's territory, the West Sea city that was closest to the western border. Just like when they went to the Heaven Sacred Sect, there was also a branch of the Ancient Sacred Sect in West Sea City. Of course, the Sun Sacred Sect also sent people to guard this place. After a simple inquiry and ranking, Xiao Chen and Qin Shuru were allowed to enter the core area of the Sun Sacred Sect. "Husband, are we going directly to the 100,000 Flames territory?" Qin Shuru asked as they walked side by side on the streets of West Sea City. West Sea City was just a small city, there was nothing special about it. Hearing this, Xiao Chen nodded. According to Xiao Chen, they should head to the 100,000 Flames realm as soon as possible and not waste any time. However, just as the two of them were about to leave the city, they happened to hear some people talking on both sides of the street. "The Holy Son of the Sun Saint sect is already here. Looks like we're really going to slaughter that demonic beast this time." That's right. It's said that the demonic beast is extremely powerful, and it seems to be a dragon. Dragon race? That's impossible. The Dragon Clan is the royal clan of the demon beast. There has never been a dragon clan in my Tianhe continent. Everyone was whispering among themselves, and Xiao Chen was able to hear all of it. Originally, Xiao Chen had nothing to do with the fact that the Sun Saint sect's holy son had come to kill the demonic beast. However, Xiao Chen cared about the dragon that everyone was talking about. The Dragon Clan was definitely an extremely rare demon beast. Hearing this, a figure immediately appeared in Xiao Chen's mind. It was his second sister, Long Qing. The Dragon Clan had never appeared in the Tianhe continent, but now, above the endless sea outside West Sea City, a dragon had appeared. How could Xiao Chen not associate this with Long Qing? Not only Xiao Chen, but Qin Shuru's expression also changed slightly. He looked at Xiao Chen. Although he didn't say anything, his meaning was already very obvious. After exchanging a glance with Qin Shuru, Xiao Chen stepped in front of these cultivators and took the initiative to ask, "Friends, what's the matter with the dragon you were talking about?" Hearing Xiao Chen's words, these cultivators looked unfriendly at first, but when they saw the Holy Sun's robe that Xiao Chen was wearing, they instantly put on a smiling face and took the initiative to tell the two of them the whole story. This time, Xiao Chen didn't hide his identity. He was wearing the Holy Sun's robe of the ancient sacred sect. At a glance, they recognized that Xiao Chen was the Holy Son of the ancient sacred sect. Therefore, these people naturally didn't dare to offend him. They told Xiao Chen the truth, and the whole thing was very simple. It was said that half a month ago, someone saw a dragon above the West Sea. When this news spread, it naturally attracted the attention of many people. After all, the Dragon Clan was extremely rare. Even though the strength of every single dragon was extremely terrifying, they could be said to be covered in treasures. So, when they confirmed that a dragon existed above the West Sea, many cultivators of West Sea City aroused greed in their hearts and wanted to join forces to kill the dragon. Unfortunately, a few dozen people formed a group, and there were even many Dao Emperor realm experts amongst them. However, they were still unable to kill the dragon. Conversely, more than half of them were killed by the dragon instead. Moreover, perhaps it was infuriated by their encirclement, but just a few days ago, the dragon had attacked West Sea City. The memories of that day were still fresh in the minds of the West Sea City cultivators. A giant azure dragon fell from the sky and a dragon's roar shook the sky. The entire West Sea City was covered in a terrifying dragon's might, and in just a short period of time, a third of West Sea City was destroyed. As they spoke, these cultivators even pointed at the city in the east. Xiao Chen turned to look and saw that the entire eastern city had indeed been destroyed. There were ruins everywhere. The revenge of the Dragon Clan came very quickly, and at the same time, the Sun Saint sect also responded very quickly. According to the descriptions of the witnesses, The dragon that the Sun Saint sect withdrew from was perhaps a pure-blooded dragon. So, the Sun Saint sect sent a holy son to West Sea City with the goal of killing the dragon. After knowing the cause and effect of the matter, Xiao Qin left with Qin Shuru. But along the way, Xiao Qin was thinking about what these cultivators had said. The azure dragon was most likely his second sister, Long Qing. Since it was possible that it was Long Qing and the Sun Saint sect's holy son had already arrived in West Sea City, Xiao Qin naturally couldn't just watch as Long Qing fell into danger. Although he wasn't sure if it was true, Xiao Qin had to wait. If it was really his second sister, Long Qing, then he had to save her no matter what. Thinking of this, Xiao Qin secretly said to Xiao Xing, "Old ancestor, I can't leave West Sea City for the time being." "What, is it because of that dragon?" Hearing this, Xiao Xing quickly guessed Xiao Qin's thoughts. Faced with Xiao Xing's inquiry, Xiao Qin didn't hide anything and replied truthfully, "Yes, that dragon might be my second sister. I can't just ignore it." "Your second sister? Boy, you really don't stop until you say something shocking. A dragon could be your second sister? And it might even be a pure-blooded dragon. Although I haven't really seen a dragon, it is said that dragons are extremely arrogant. Except for themselves, they don't care about any other races, including the demon race. Boy, can you be the brother and sister of a pure-blooded dragon?" Xiao Xing said somewhat mockingly. In this regard, Xiao Qin curled his lips helplessly. Xiao Qin naturally knew about the arrogance of dragons, just like Long Qing. Although she was his second sister, she was indeed very arrogant. However, Xiao Xing didn't know about the past between him and Long Qing, so he naturally couldn't understand the relationship between the two. But in any case, since a dragon had appeared in the West Sea and it was very likely to be Long Qing, then Xiao Qin couldn't leave. 6 updates today. This is the first update. Chapter 825. He gave up the idea of leaving West Sea City directly. After all, Long Qing was very likely to be the dragon that everyone was talking about. Since that was the case, Xiao Qin naturally couldn't just leave, not to mention that the holy son of the Sun Sacred Sect had already arrived in West Sea City, ready to kill Long Qing. He went directly to the ancient sacred sect's encampment in West Sea City. There was still a half-step Saint Deacon of the ancient sacred sect guarding here. The half-step Saint Deacon was very respectful towards Xiao Qin's arrival. It was not only because of Xiao Qin's identity as the Holy Son, but also because the saints valued Xiao Qin highly. The matter of Xiao Qin during the inheritance period had already spread inside the ancient sacred sect. Not only was he highly valued by the saints, but now Xiao Qin was no longer the 5th Holy Son, but the 1st Holy Son. After defeating Yuan Lin, Xiao Qin's title as the 1st Holy Son was recognized by the saints of the ancient sacred sect. Therefore, in the face of Xiao Qin, a big shot in the ancient sacred sect, the half-step Saint Deacon guarding West Sea City naturally didn't dare to neglect him in the slightest. A room was prepared for Xiao Qin and Qin Shuru. Then they sat in the main hall. Xiao Qin naturally sat in the main seat. Looking at the half-step Saint Deacon below, Xiao Qin said with a smile, "Do you know which holy son of the Sun Sacred Sect has come this time?" He didn't know which holy son of the Sun Sacred Sect had come to West Sea City. In the face of Xiao Qin's inquiry, the half-step Saint Deacon didn't conceal anything and answered truthfully. "It's the 4th Holy Son, Jun Tong." Like the ancient sacred sect, the Sun Sacred Sect also had 4 holy sons, but Xiao Qin had only seen the 3rd Holy Son, Yan Xiong. Originally, Xiao Qin thought that if it was Yan Xiong who came this time, then things would be easier. Unfortunately, it wasn't Yan Xiong, but Jun Tong. Compared to Yan Xiong, Jun Tong's strength was weaker, but he still couldn't be underestimated. After all, he was a holy son. After knowing who this person was, Xiao Qin asked about the giant azure dragon attacking West Sea City, as well as whether he knew where the dragon race was. He told Xiao Qin the whole story in detail, But unfortunately, Xiao Chen did not get any useful information from the sage-to-be deacon. Furthermore, he did not know where the dragon tribe was now. Since they couldn't find the dragon, they could only wait for her to come knocking on their door. Regarding this, Xiao Chen was also helpless. Now, he didn't know what Jun Tong meant. If he insisted on killing the dragon, then there was likely to be a battle. And if that dragon happened to be Long Qing, then Xiao Chen naturally couldn't stay out of it. He didn't know Jun Tong at all, so there was no friendship between them. It seemed that he could only wait. They stayed in the ancient sacred sect's encampment. At night, Xiao Chen and Qin Shuru naturally couldn't sleep in separate rooms. Both of them were already married. With a beauty like Qin Shuru by his side, Xiao Chen naturally didn't have much mood to cultivate. Moreover, he had cultivated too much during this period, so Xiao Chen just happened to want to relax. Just as he was about to sleep, Xiao Chen said to Xiao Xing in his body, "Old ancestor, we're going to sleep. If you want to sleep, then sleep. I didn't stop you." Hearing this, Xiao Xing replied snappily, "I'll stay with Shuru. Old ancestor, I'm afraid it's not suitable for you to stay here." Xiao Xing didn't understand his meaning at all. Xiao Chen had no choice but to say it clearly. Really, an old monster who has lived for God knows how many years. How can he be so blind? He secretly thought. Hearing this, Xiao Xing didn't say anything more and directly went to the next room. Anyway, he had now completely made up for his remnant soul. Even if it wasn't in Xiao Chen's body, it wouldn't be a problem. After driving away Xiao Xing, the third wheel, Xiao Chen and Qin Shuru naturally did what they loved to do. In the next few days, Xiao Chen and Qin Shuru stayed in the ancient sacred sect's encampment. 3 days passed in a row. Late at night, Xiao Chen and Qin Shuru were still awake. However, in an instant, above the endless sea outside West Sea City, a terrifying aura soared into the sky. As the westernmost city of the Sun Sacred Sect, West Sea City was adjacent to the West Sea. It could be said to be a seaside city. At this time, the aura of many monster beasts soared into the sky from the West Sea. In an instant, Xiao Chen and Qin Shuru's expressions changed slightly. Xiao Chen even whispered softly, "They're here." After saying this, Xiao Chen called Xiao Xing and Qin Shuru and rushed out of the city. When Xiao Chen and the other two arrived at the city wall, they saw a dense crowd of monster beasts swarming towards West Sea City. These monster beasts all came from the sea. Xiao Chen indeed saw a huge azure dragon among them. With just a glance, Xiao Chen recognized that it was his second sister, Long Qing. He didn't expect it to really be Long Qing. However, looking at Long Qing's furious appearance, it was clear that she hated West Sea City. It was no wonder. He was no stranger to Long Qing's character. This woman was definitely not easy to deal with. The cultivators of West Sea City actually wanted to slay a dragon and kill her, and more than once. With Long Qing's character, how could she possibly allow herself to be captured without a fight? After gathering many monster beasts, Long Qing attacked again. It seemed that this time, she wanted to completely raze West Sea City to the ground. Xiao Chen didn't find it strange that Long Qing could gather so many monster beasts. As a member of the dragon race, Long Qing was also the strongest and rarest pure-blooded dragon among the dragon race. The power of her bloodline was extremely powerful. Among the monster beasts, who only looked at the power of their bloodline, the pure-blooded dragon race could be said to be destined to be the emperor of the monster beasts. All monster beasts had to listen to their orders. Of course, to be able to fight for a pure-blooded dragon was something to be proud of in the eyes of many monster beasts. The monster horde was getting closer and closer, and the cultivators of West Sea City also rushed to the city wall. Facing the attack of so many monster beasts, the cultivators of West Sea City all had ugly expressions. However, at this time, above the city wall, a young man wearing the robe of the Sun Sacred Sect's holy son appeared out of thin air. This young man was none other than the Holy Sun, who had specially come from the Sun Sacred Sect to kill Long Qing, Jun Tong. With the appearance of Jun Tong, the experts of the Sun Sacred Sect also appeared one after another. Seeing this scene, the people on the city wall gradually calmed down. Looking at the monster horde that was constantly attacking above the sea, Jun Tong's eyes were fixed on Long Qing. Dragon race, that was a dragon, and a pure-blooded one at that. Murderous intent flashed across Jun Tong's eyes. If he could kill this pure-blooded dragon today, not only would he gain a lot of benefits, but his prestige would also skyrocket. After all, a dragon slayer would be remembered by the world. Locking his eyes on Long Qing, Jun Tong's indifferent voice sounded, "Everyone, the monster beasts are attacking the city. Let's kill these bastards together." Second update, brothers, seeking recommendation votes, seeking monthly votes, seeking collection. Chapter 826. Facing the attack of so many monster beasts, Jun Tong was not nervous at all. After all, the Tianhe continent was a human world. Although there were monster beasts, they were not enough to threaten the safety of humans. With these monster beasts gathered by Long Qing, they might be able to break through West Sea City in normal times, but it was absolutely impossible today. The reason was very simple, because Jun Tong was here. With Jun Tong and the powerhouses of the Sun Saint sect, these monster beasts alone could not break through West Sea City. Because of this, Jun Tong did not care about the attack of the monster beasts at all. The only thing he was interested in was the pure-blood dragon. Killing the dragon was the reason why Jun Tong came all the way from the Sun Saint sect to West Sea City. His purpose was very simple and direct. Hearing Jun Tong's words, the warriors on the city wall were also full of fighting spirit. With the Holy Sun leading the team, they were not afraid of these monster beasts. As soon as Jun Tong's voice fell, the monster beasts had already rushed to the front of West Sea City. At the same time, the warriors on the city wall also rushed out and immediately engaged in a fierce battle with the monster beasts. Seeing the outbreak of the battle between the two sides, Qin Shuru naturally recognized Long Qing. He turned to Shao Chun and said, "Husband." Qin Shuru's meaning was very clear. He was asking Shao Chun what to do. Hearing this, Shao Chun slightly exhorted for a moment, then pulled Qin Shuru down the city wall and walked to a place where there was no one. No one knew what Shao Chun was going to do. At this time, Jun Tong finally met Long Qing head-on. He had already transformed into his true form, a giant azure dragon more than 100 feet long occupying the sky. Compared to Long Qing's true form, Jun Tong was very small. However, this seemingly sand-sized body erupted with a power even more terrifying than Long Qing's. Facing Long Qing, Jun Tong was not afraid, only excited and full of fighting spirit. A pure-blood dragon. Staring at the huge figure of Long Qing, Jun Tong's aura soared into the sky as he said indifferently, "It really is a pure-blooded dragon. It seems that I, Jun Tong, will become the first person in the Tianhe continent to slay a dragon." "Aunt, you think you're worthy?" Hearing this, Long Qing spoke in human language. Although judging from Jun Tong's aura, this person was definitely not simple, Long Qing did not have the slightest intention of backing down and was still fearless. Naturally, it was impossible for him to show weakness. Hearing this, Jun Tong sneered, "You evil beast, die for me." Without any superfluous words, Jun Tong chose to attack. The man and the dragon immediately engaged in a fierce battle. After so many years, Long Qing's cultivation had also reached the beginner level of the beast-revered realm, the same level as Shao Chun. His cultivation progress did not fall behind Shao Chun's at all. Shao Chun was able to break through to the Tao Master realm because of several great opportunities, but Long Qing relied on his own bloodline to break through to the beast-revered realm. This showed how terrifying the bloodline of the dragon was. However, although Long Qing's cultivation was now at the beginner level of the beast-revered realm, in terms of strength, there was still a big gap between him and Jun Tong. There was no other way. Although the bloodline of the dragon was strong, Long Qing was now just a young dragon, and the power of his bloodline had not been fully awakened. On the other hand, Jun Tong was a figure at the Holy Sun realm. Not to mention his terrifying combat strength, merely his cultivation was at the Tao Emperor realm. There was a gap of an entire realm between them, so Long Qing naturally didn't have any chance of victory. In fact, Long Qing was injured by Jun Tong in a single blow. In response, Jun Tong smiled and said, "You should still be in your infancy. Otherwise, even a quasi-saint would not be a match for a full-grown pure-blood dragon." He could see at a glance that Long Qing was still in his infancy. Hearing this, the killing intent in Long Qing's eyes intensified, and he shouted without backing down, "Even in my infancy, it's enough to kill you. Is that so? If I give you a few more years, maybe you can. Unfortunately, you won't have the chance." In the face of Long Qing's angry shout, Jun Tong did not refute and just said indifferently. After saying this, without waiting for Long Qing to reply, Jun Tong once again took the initiative to attack. The battle was almost one-sided. Long Qing could not block Jun Tong's attack at all. Many wounds had appeared on his huge body, and blood flowed out from the wounds. Soon, the green dragon's scales were dyed red. His injuries were getting more and more serious, but even so, Long Qing still had no intention of retreating. Seeing that the victory was decided, Jun Tong held a long sword in his hand and said with a faint smile on his face, "It seems that the outcome is decided. Evil creature, you can die now." With that, Jun Tong directly slashed out with his sword. The sword edge swept across and was about to cut Long Qing's body. At this critical moment, a sword light flashed and collided with Jun Tong's sword edge, and then cancelled each other out. Someone blocked Jun Tong's attack. Jun Tong frowned slightly. At the same time, in front of Long Qing, an ordinary-looking middle-aged man in black appeared on the field. Looking at the middle-aged man indifferently, Jun Tong said indifferently, "Who are you?" Jun Tong was about to succeed, but it was suddenly ruined. Naturally, he was furious. The identity of the middle-aged man was naturally Shao Chun. Shao Chun didn't want to become enemies with the Sun Saint clan, so he chose to hide his identity. Anyway, his purpose was only to take away Long Qing, and he didn't want to do anything to Jun Tong. In the face of Jun Tong's questioning, Shao Chun, who had concealed his identity with the art of disguise, didn't answer. Instead, he transmitted his voice to Long Qing, "Second sister, let's go." Long Qing, who was initially confused, was stunned when he heard Shao Chun's words. However, he quickly reacted and spoke to Shao Chun through his mind telepathy with a look of surprise. You're my little brother?" The only person who could call her second sister was naturally Shao Chun. In this regard, Shao Chun nodded and confirmed Shao Chun's identity. Long Qing was excited, but now was obviously not the time to reminisce. Shao Chun once again urged Long Qing to leave, but this time, Long Qing said very unhappily, "No, I'm going to kill this human." Just now, she was almost killed by Jun Tong, so Long Qing's resentment couldn't be dispelled. Hearing this, Shao Chun was directly speechless. Her bad temper was rising again. He knew Long Qing's bad temper very well, but it was obviously not the time to fight to the death with Jun Tong. That was why he was able to block Jun Tong's attack, and Shao Chun was able to withstand Shao Xing's power. Otherwise, Shao Chun would be no match for Jun Tong. Long Qing vowed to fight to the death with Jun Tong. Seeing this, Shao Chun was directly speechless. Without saying a word, and regardless of whether Long Qing agreed or not, he grabbed Long Qing's tail and dragged her huge body directly into West Sea City. Third update, please bookmark, please recommend. Chapter 8:27. A person dragging a giant azure dragon that was over 100 feet long was rushing towards West Sea City. Being forcefully taken away by Shao Chun, Long Qing struggled in dissatisfaction. "Little brother, let me go. If I don't kill this human today, I won't leave." Long Qing shouted in dissatisfaction, but Xiao Chen chose to ignore her. Damn it, you want to kill him? If you don't leave now, you'll be the one who dies. You're really stubborn. Xiao Chen knew that Long Qing had a bad temper, especially when she liked to get into a dead end. He chose to ignore Long Qing's angry roar. At the same time, Xiao Xing also teased Xiao Chen with a chuckle. I heard that dragons are all very arrogant and stubborn. Now it seems that it's true. Xiao Xing teased with a smile. Xiao Chen curled his lips and didn't say anything. Seeing Xiao Chen forcibly carrying Long Qing to escape, Jun Tong naturally didn't agree. She sneered and quickly chased after them. Want to run? Can you run? Xiao Chen's speed was already slow, so in the blink of an eye, Jun Tong caught up with Xiao Chen. It was impossible to escape, and Jun Tong had absolute confidence in this. However, would Xiao Chen be unprepared? Of course not. Just as Xiao Chen and Jun Tong crossed the West Sea City's city wall, Xiao Chen had just crossed it, and Jun Tong chased after him. At this moment, from below the city wall, an icicle suddenly soared into the sky, instantly freezing Jun Tong. This icicle was naturally Qin Shuru's means. As the ice god physique, Qin Shuru's spiritual energy had an extreme cold aura. However, it was impossible for this icicle to trap Jun Tong, but it only needed a few breaths of time. In just 3 or 4 breaths of time, the icicles were shattered by Jun Tong. However, when Jun Tong looked around, Xiao Chen and Long Qing were nowhere to be seen. When Jun Tong had been frozen for several breaths of time, Xiao Chen had ordered Long Qing to return to his human form. Then the group charged into West Sea City, and under the cover of the buildings and darkness, they headed straight for the ancient sacred sect's residence. After looking around and not finding any trace of Xiao Chen and Long Qing, Jun Tong's face turned ugly. She gave a cold snort and said, "Humph, I don't believe you can escape West Sea City. Even if I have to dig 3 feet into the ground, I will find that dragon." She was certain that Xiao Chen and Long Qing were in West Sea City, but Jun Tong had not guessed Xiao Chen's identity and would never have thought that they would be hiding in the ancient sacred sect's territory. First, they met up with Qin Shuru and then returned to the ancient sacred sect's territory. After safely arriving at the ancient sacred sect's territory, Xiao Chen heaved a sigh of relief. Long Qing, who had returned to her human form and had many wounds on her body, still shouted with an unhappy face. "Little brother, why did you pull me to escape? If we joined hands, we would have definitely killed that human." She was still angry about what had happened just now. Upon hearing this, Xiao Chen grabbed Long Qing without saying a word and pressed her firmly on his legs. Then, he slapped Long Qing's butt. "You didn't listen to my command. Do you know that you almost couldn't come back just now? Second sister, you shouldn't be so hot-tempered. You know that you are no match for him, yet you still want to court death?" Xiao Chen was also a little angry because of Long Qing, so he used a lot of strength. After being slapped by Xiao Chen, Long Qing was stunned at first, but then her face turned red and she shouted with shame and anger. "You? How dare you hit me? I am your second sister. Bullsh *t. Even if you are my biological sister, I will still hit you today. Don't you know that you are not on the same level as Jun Tong? You still want to fight to your death." Xiao Chen scolded and slapped Long Qing's butt again. After more than a dozen slaps, Long Qing was extremely angry and embarrassed. In the end, Xiao Chen's anger dissipated and he let go of Long Qing. Long Qing didn't attack again, which was rare. She just glared at Xiao Chen resentfully. Xiao Chen didn't care about Long Qing's resentment at all. This female Tyrannosaurus was disobedient and deserved a beating. Just now, because of Long Qing, he almost ruined his plan. One must know that Long Qing's identity was very tempting. If he didn't succeed in escaping, once his identity was exposed, Xiao Chen wasn't confident that he could protect Long Qing. One must know that pure-blooded dragons were full of treasures. If the Sacred Sun sect was jealous, wouldn't the ancient sacred sect be jealous as well? Therefore, even though Shao Chen was the holy son of the ancient sacred sect, he couldn't guarantee that he could protect Long Qing. Therefore, Long Qing's identity couldn't be exposed casually in the future. Otherwise, those human warriors would flock to her. Until now, no one had seen Long Qing's appearance. As long as she didn't expose her identity as a dragon in front of others in the future, Shao Chen had a way to deceive everyone. Only then could she be considered safe. Shao Chen exhaled a mouthful of turbid air and said to Long Qing seriously, "Second sister, in the future, you are not allowed to transform into your original form in front of others, and you can't expose your identity as a dragon, understand?" Upon hearing Shao Chen's words, Long Qing didn't get angry, which was rare. Instead, she pouted and said, "I know. A pure-blooded dragon was actually so obedient to a human. Besides, Long Qing was the second sister, but she could be said to be obedient to her third brother, Shao Chen. Apart from being a little stubborn when she was still angry, she didn't refute Shao Chen's words now." Seeing Long Qing nodding obediently, Shao Chen's Shao Xing was a little confused. This is still a pure-blooded dragon. Weren't all dragons arrogant and haughty? How can she be so obedient to a human? Oh my God! It was a little messy, but Shao Chen didn't care about Shao Xing's thoughts at all. They were safe for the time being. Then, Shao Chen asked about Long Qing's experiences over the years. In the face of Shao Chen's inquiry, Long Qing naturally didn't hide anything and told him the truth. In fact, Long Qing's experiences over the years weren't complicated. As soon as she came to the Sky River mainland, she appeared in the West Ocean. As a dragon, living in the ocean was nothing to Long Qing. Therefore, Long Qing had never left the West Ocean and had been cultivating in the West Ocean. With the help of her powerful dragon bloodline, Long Qing's cultivation speed could be said to be terrifying. She had forcefully cultivated to the initial stage of the beast sovereign realm. Upon hearing Long Qing's words, Shao Chen felt helpless. It was really infuriating to compare oneself to others. No, it should be comparing oneself to a dragon. Thinking about it, if it weren't for the numerous opportunities that he had obtained, his cultivation would probably be far from the Tao sovereign realm. But look at Long Qing. Just by relying on her dragon bloodline, she had forcefully caught up with his cultivation speed. This showed how terrifying the dragon bloodline was. After finishing Long Qing's story, Shao Chen asked at the end, "Have you seen Big Brother?" "No." Long Qing shook his head when he heard that. Chapter 4. Please collect, please vote, please recommend. Chapter 828. Long Qing hadn't seen Chen Ling and didn't have any news about him. To put it bluntly, Long Qing had been living in the West Sea all these years and hadn't interacted with anyone from the heavenly Chen continent. There was still no news about Chen Ling and Shao Qing. As such, Shao Chen could only give up. Then, Shao Chen introduced Shao Xing to Long Qing. When she saw Shao Xing, Long Qing's expression changed and she exclaimed in surprise, "Little brother, he isn't." Long Qing had seen Shao Xing before, but wasn't he already dead in the heavenly Chen continent? So why did he appear here now? Shao Chen wasn't surprised by Long Qing's surprise. He briefly explained what had happened to Long Qing. After Long Qing understood the whole story, he came back to his senses and said with a sigh, "You're right. I see. In that case, Senior still has a chance to be resurrected?" "Yes, there is. And it should be soon." Shao Chen nodded in response. "Little girl, your dragon bloodline is very rich. It seems like you're one of the top pure-blooded dragons," Shao Xing said with a smile after Shao Chen finished his sentence. Shao Xing had never seen a pure-blooded dragon before, so he was rather interested in Long Qing. However, Long Qing's attitude towards Shao Xing instantly turned cold. Of course, this coldness was entirely due to Long Qing's personality. As a pure-blooded dragon, Long Qing didn't care about any other race. This was a pride that went deep into her bones. Perhaps only in front of Xiao Qin would Long Qing show this intimate side of her. Even when facing Chun Ling, Long Qing's attitude was indifferent. There was no intimacy at all. After being brushed off by Long Qing, Xiaoxing didn't continue to flatter her. However, Xiaoxing still looked at Xiao Qin with jealousy. He thought to himself, just how lucky is this kid? Not only does he have the ice goddess physique and the moon goddess physique, but even his second sister is a pure-blooded dragon and is extremely intimate with Xiao Qin. It should be known that it was almost impossible for a pure-blooded dragon to be intimate with a human being. However, Xiao Qin did it. They chatted for a while and soon returned to their rooms one after another. Of course, Xiao Qin still shared a room with Qin Shuru. The matter seemed to have been resolved. Xiao Qin also planned to take Long Qing to the 100,000 fire territory. However, in the early morning of the next day, when Xiao Qin was about to leave, Jun Tong suddenly came with several experts of the Sun Saint sect, saying that they wanted to search. When the Sun Saint sect wanted to search the Ancient Saint sect's residence, the half-saint deacon of the Ancient Saint sect immediately told Xiao Qin about it. Hearing this, Xiao Qin smiled slightly. He wasn't worried at all. He even directly took Qin Shuru and Long Qing to the main hall to meet Jun Tong together. He wasn't afraid that his and Long Qing's identities would be exposed. Last night, Xiao Qin used the disguise technique. In such a short time, Xiao Qin was sure that Jun Tong couldn't detect any flaws, let alone see through his disguise. As for Long Qing, she had already turned into a human. As long as she didn't activate the power of her bloodline, her identity wouldn't be exposed. In Jun Tong's eyes, Long Qing was also a human being. Jun Tong strode into the main hall with the two women. Seeing Xiao Qin coming, Jun Tong was stunned at first. She looked at Qin Shuru and Long Qing beside Xiao Qin in amazement. It had to be said that Jun Tong was also attracted by the appearance of the two women. Qin Shuru was cold, while Long Qing was domineering. The two women with completely different temperaments stood together, but their appearance was equally stunning. It really made Jun Tong absent-minded for a moment. However, Jun Tong was a holy son after all. His composure was naturally not comparable to that of ordinary people. Although he was stunned, he quickly recovered. He looked at Xiao Qin with a smile on his face and spoke in an extremely friendly manner. This must be junior brother Xiao Qin. I've heard so much about you. Today, I finally get to meet you. Obviously, before coming, Jun Tong had made some preparations. She also knew that Xiao Qin was in West Sea City at this time. It was just that she didn't see Xiao Qin last night. Hearing Jun Tong's words, Xiao Qin also pretended to smile and said, "Senior brother is too polite. May I know why senior brother is here today?" Xiao Qin didn't have the slightest guilty conscience because he knew that Jun Tong definitely didn't see any flaws. Sure enough, seeing Xiao Qin's indifferent face, Jun Tong didn't have the slightest doubt and just said, "It's like this. Junior brother Xiao should also have heard about the beast attack last night, right?" I heard, but weren't they easily defeated by senior brother?" Hearing this, Xiao Qin replied, The beast horde has indeed been beaten back, but the dragon that organized the monster beast attack has escaped. Moreover, according to senior brother's guess, she should not have left West Sea City yet, she has only turned into human form to hide." Xiao Qin asked with a smile, "Senior brother, are you saying that I was the one who hid him?" "Haha, junior brother, you must be joking. I was just casually asking." Jun Tong laughed. In fact, the purpose of Jun Tong's visit today was very obvious. He wanted to search the ancient sacred sect's residence. He was afraid that the people of the ancient sacred sect had hidden the pure-blood dragon. After all, the temptation of a pure-blood dragon was not ordinary. Its body was full of treasures. Even a saint would be jealous. Xiao Qin had already guessed the purpose of Jun Tong's visit. He pretended to be friendly and chatted for a while. Then, Xiao Qin simply agreed to Jun Tong's search. After all, he could not find anything. He didn't have the slightest intention of stopping him. Facing Xiao Chen's calmness, Jun Tong secretly guessed that the dragon was really not in the hands of the ancient sacred sect. Although he had doubts in his heart, Jun Tong still ordered the search. Seeing was believing. If the dragon was really not in the hands of the ancient sacred sect, then it would save a lot of trouble. Watching Jun Tong and the others begin the search, Xiao Chen sat in the main hall with a calm face. He knew very well that the more he stopped Jun Tong at this time, the more confused he would be. Anyway, Long Qing was beside him. Even if Jun Tong dug 3 feet into the ground, he would certainly not find any clues. Jun Tong searched inside and out, but as Xiao Chen had expected, she found nothing. Eventually, Jun Tong came to the main hall and saluted Xiao Chen with her hands folded. "Junior brother, please forgive me. I have no choice. When you come to the ancient sacred sect in the future, I will personally apologize." Since they didn't find anything, Jun Tong took the initiative to apologize. Hearing this, Xiao Chen waved his hand indifferently and said, "Senior brother is too polite. In that case, junior brother won't keep senior brother any longer. To be honest, junior brother is planning to leave West Sea City today." "Junior brother is leaving today? Where are you going?" Hearing this, Jun Tong pretended to be curious and asked. Chapter 5. Seeking Collection, Seeking Monthly Votes, Seeking Recommendation. Chapter 829. Hearing that Xiao Chen was leaving West Sea City today, Jun Tong pretended to be concerned. Hearing this, Xiao Chen smiled and said, "I won't hide it from senior brother. I came to the Sun Saint Province this time to train in the 100,000 Flames domain." Xiao Chen bluntly stated his destination. Regarding this, there was no need to hide it. In any case, when he appeared in the 100,000 Flames domain, Jun Tong would definitely be the first to know if he wanted to. Acting was naturally a mixture of truth and falsehood. In the end, if you lied, you might end up making a fool of yourself. Sure enough, after hearing Xiao Chen's words, the last bit of doubt in Jun Tong's heart vanished like smoke. Jun Tong didn't have any opinion about Xiao Chen going to the 100,000 Flames domain. Although the 100,000 Flames domain was one of the 4 great death zones of the Sky River continent, like the Wind Plain, it was also one of the places where many cultivators went to train. Frankly speaking, the 100,000 Flames domain was even more popular than the Wind Plain. After all, the 100,000 Flames domain had the effect of tempering one's body. Just this point alone was enough to attract many people. After knowing that Xiao Chen was leaving West Sea City today, the two chatted casually for a while. In the end, Jun Tong said with a smile, "In that case, I won't disturb junior brother. When this matter is over, junior brother must come to the Sun Saint sect. At that time, senior brother will treat you well as an apology for today's disturbance. Senior brother is too polite. If there is time, junior brother will definitely pay a visit." Hearing this, Xiao Chen also replied with a smile. Then, Jun Tong left with his people. After Jun Tong left, Long Qing, who had been indifferent all this time, said with an unhappy face, "Humph, junior brother, why are you talking so much with such a person? If it were up to me, I would have directly attacked him. In any case, this is our territory. Just kill him." Long Qing was obviously still filled with murderous intent towards Jun Tong. Xiao Chen shook his head and smiled bitterly. His second sister was really... If he hadn't specifically warned her beforehand, perhaps she would have taken action just now. How could killing Jun Tong be so simple? If a holy son could be killed so easily, then it would be too much. Chen Yu had once told Xiao Chen that the holy sons of the Tianhe continent were difficult to kill even if they were half-step sages. After all, as holy sons, they had too many means, especially life-saving means. It was precisely because he knew that it was difficult to kill a holy son that Xiao Chen had never thought of doing anything to Jun Tong. Now, he had completely dispelled the worries in his heart. Going to the 100,000 Flames territory was already the best result. As for Juntong, if he wanted to find Long Qing, he would continue to search in West Sea City. After searching for a while, he would naturally give up. Without further delay, Xiao Chen informed the half-step sage deacon of the West Sea City encampment. Then, they directly stepped onto the transmission array and headed for the 100,000 Flames territory. There was a transmission array from West Sea City that led to the core of the Sacred Sun continent, but it couldn't go directly to the 100,000 Flames territory. They could only go to the main city of the Sacred Sun continent, Yenyang City, and then go to the 100,000 Flames territory from there. Yenyang City was the largest city in the Sacred Sun continent. At the same time, it was directly under the jurisdiction of the Sacred Sun sect. Therefore, Yenyang City had always been called the main city of the Sacred Sun continent. There wasn't the slightest obstruction, and Juntong didn't secretly obstruct them. Obviously, he had completely dispelled his suspicions about Xiao Chen. Therefore, the group smoothly arrived at Yenyang City through the transmission array of West Sea City. Compared to a small border city like West Sea City, the prosperity of Yenyang City was breathtaking. Not only was there a cauldron of voices, but there were also countless kinds of pavilions and lofts. Moreover, all the houses in Yenyang City were fiery red. From afar it looked like a huge ball of fire was burning on the ground. As the main city of the Sacred Sun continent, Yenyang City gathered cultivators from all over the Sacred Sun continent. Of course, the business here was also very developed. Not only could one buy things native to the Sacred Sun continent, but one could also buy treasures unique to the Sacred Sun continent and the ancient Sacred Sun continent. Even the Origin Wind Pill, which was a specialty of the ancient Sacred Sun continent, was sold by Xiao Chen. There were people coming and going on the streets. Of course, Xiao Chen was no longer the silly boy who had just arrived in the Heavenly River continent. Over the years, Xiao Chen's knowledge and experience had been constantly increasing. Therefore, when faced with the prosperity of Yenyang City, Xiao Chen didn't feel anything special. After all, there were cities comparable to Yenyang City in the ancient Sacred Sun continent, so there was no need to be surprised. Xiao Chen was very calm, but Qin Shuru and Long Qing were a little troublesome. One was cold, the other overbearing. These two women actually began to stroll around excitedly when faced with the prosperity of Yenyang City. Of course, the two women didn't pay attention to the treasures used for cultivation. Instead, they paid attention to some women's items, such as rouge, face powder, hairpins, clothes, and so on. The two women could be said to be very happy shopping. Looking at these two beauties, they were like ordinary girls at this time, chatting and laughing while choosing the things they liked. Although their temperament was still unapproachable, there was a hint of womanly charm in them. In this regard, Xiao Chen was helpless because the two women didn't listen to him at all. On the other hand, Xiao Xing chuckled and teased them. It seems that no matter how cold a woman is, she still has no resistance to shopping. I say, boy, do you still plan to go to the 100,000 fire domain today? Or do you want to stay in Yenyang City for the night? Hearing Xiao Xing's words, Xiao Chen said helplessly, "Look at you, can you still leave tonight?" Originally, Xiao Chen planned to go directly to the 100,000 fire domain, but now it seemed that he couldn't. With Qin Shuru and Long Qing's attitude, he was afraid that he wouldn't be able to leave today even if he wanted to. They strolled through one store after another. At the same time, the two women's storage rings were filled up at an astonishing speed. All kinds of rouge, face powder, heavy and exquisite hairpins, and even some beautiful accessories. The two women didn't know how much they bought. Of course, the two women had no concept of money at all. Just like now, Long Qing walked directly into a clothing store, looked around, then waved her hand, and all the clothes in the store were put into her storage ring. Then, she directly bid 100 spirit stones and strode away. Seeing this scene, Xiao Chen was speechless. Did this woman use spirit stones to buy clothes? It was a complete waste of heaven's goods. One had to know that these clothes were just ordinary clothes. There was no need to use spirit stones to buy them at all. Gold coins would be enough. However, this woman actually directly gave 100 spirit stones to someone else. Xiao Chen was speechless as he followed behind the two women. Just as he was feeling listless, Long Qing's cold voice suddenly came from the front. Scram! Hearing Long Qing's cold voice, Xiao Chen raised his head and looked over. For a moment, a smile flashed across his eyes. Was there really someone who wasn't afraid of death here? He even dared to flirt with Long Qing. Please add me to your collection, monthly vote, recommend me. Chapter 830. Looking over, Xiao Chen saw a young man in the Sun Saint sect's personal disciple uniform blocking the way of Long Qing and Long Qing. At this time, he was saying something to Long Qing with a flattering face, while Long Qing was glaring at him with a livid face. A mere personal disciple was undoubtedly an ant-like existence in Long Qing's eyes. However, such an ant actually shamelessly boasted that he wanted Long Qing to be his woman. How could Long Qing not be angry? She already had an impulse to attack, but Xiao Chen strode over to Long Qing first and looked at the Sun Saint sect's disciple. You're not my second sister's cup of tea. Hurry up and leave. Xiao Chen did not let Long Qing attack. After all, Long Qing's identity as a member of the Dragon Clan could not be exposed. However, the Sun Saint sect's personal disciple was obviously reckless. Hearing Xiao Chen's words, the disciple's face darkened and he immediately shouted in a deep voice. Boy, who are you? Get out of here. Since he was not wearing the ancient sky robe, the disciple could not recognize Xiao Chen's identity. Hearing this, Xiao Chen smiled helplessly. He could feel that the personal disciple's cultivation was at the Tao transformation stage. Obviously, he had received the heritage of the Sun Saint sect. Perhaps it was because he had received the heritage that his strength had soared a lot, so the disciple became arrogant. However, his cultivation was not enough in Xiao Chen's eyes. Without bothering to talk nonsense, Xiao Chen directly slapped out. Seeing that Xiao Chen dared to attack, the disciple's face instantly darkened to the extreme. Although he reacted immediately and raised his hand to block, unfortunately, with his strength, how could he block Xiao Chen's attack? He easily broke through the disciple's defense and slapped the disciple's face. With a bang, the disciple was sent flying. They didn't care about such a small interlude. In the eyes of Xiao Chen and the other two, this personal disciple of the Sun Saint clan was nothing but a fly that they could easily swat to death. As for him coming to make trouble, Xiao Chen was even less afraid. He believed that the Sun Saint clan wouldn't offend him for a personal disciple. After dealing with this person, Qin Shuru and Long Qing continued to stroll around. However, perhaps because they had lost interest, the two women returned home not long after. Seeing that it was getting late, Xiao Chen and his group could only stay in Yenyang City for the night and find an inn to stay in. After a silent night, early the next morning, Xiao Chen and his group hurried to the 100,000 Flames territory. They directly stepped into the transportation array and didn't encounter any obstruction. However, just after Xiao Chen and the others left through the teleportation formation, the personal disciple who was slapped away by Xiao Chen the day before walked out from the corner. After listening to the report of a young man beside him, the disciple sneered. Going to the 100,000 Flames territory? Very good, you dare to hit me. This young master will definitely make you regret it. As he spoke, the personal disciple also took the transportation array and headed to the 100,000 Flames territory. This personal disciple clearly bore a grudge against Xiao Chen. At the same time, he also coveted Long Qing's appearance. He simply couldn't forget such a beautiful woman. However, he wasn't a fool. Yesterday, Xiao Chen had sent him flying with a slap. He already knew that Xiao Chen's strength was definitely far above his, so he didn't foolishly act rashly. Instead, he chose to follow Xiao Chen and his group to the 100,000 Flames territory. Unaware that the personal disciple had followed them to the 100,000 Flames territory, Xiao Chen and his group had already arrived at a small city on the outskirts of the 100,000 Flames territory. It was called Skyfire City. Skyfire City was specially built for the 100,000 Flames territory. Most of the cultivators who came and went in the city were people who came to the 100,000 Flames territory. Of course, most of them were disciples of the local forces of the Sun Saint sect, especially the Sun Saint sect disciples. Compared to Yen-Yang City, Skyfire City was much smaller. Moreover, it couldn't be said to be bustling. The people coming and going on the streets looked hurried. It was still early, so Xiao Chen planned to go directly to the 100,000 Flames territory. Qin Shuru and Long Qing naturally wouldn't refuse. Thus, the group directly rushed out of Skyfire City. It was very close to the 100,000 Flames territory from Skyfire City. It only took less than an hour. They left the city without any obstructions. After traveling for an hour, Xiao Chen and his group finally arrived at the outskirts of the 100,000 Flames territory. As far as the eye could see, the 100,000 Flames territory was simply a sea of fire. There was no end to the sea of fire. The flames enveloped the land and hadn't been extinguished for thousands of years. Because of the existence of the 100,000 Flames territory, the surrounding temperature was ridiculously high. Even cultivators with cultivation like Xiao Chen could feel the scorching heat. Just like the wind plains, if one wanted to enter the 100,000 Flames territory, they also had to rely on the power of a talisman. Naturally, Xiao Chen had already prepared for this. He took out 3 talismans. After the 3 of them used them, they stepped into the 100,000 Flames territory. This talisman was called the Sacred Flame Talisman. It was also a saint-level talisman. With this talisman, one could pass through the 100,000 Flames territory unimpeded. After entering the 100,000 Flames territory, Xiao Chen seemed to have walked into a time of flames. Looking at the raging flames around him, Xiao Chen was very interested in the 4 great deathlands of the Tianhe continent. He wanted to know how they were formed. This time, Xiao Chen's purpose in coming to the 100,000 Flames territory was very clear. It was to break through the tempered battle body. Therefore, they didn't stop at the outskirts. The group went directly to the core area, where the heavenly flames were. While Xiao Chen and his group were heading to the core area of the 100,000 Flames territory, the personal disciple who had been following Xiao Chen also learned that they had entered the 100,000 Flames territory. With a sneer on his face, the personal disciple said fiercely, "Boy, I don't care who you are, but you are dead meat." As he said that, the personal disciple hurriedly came to an inconspicuous small courtyard in Skyfire City. Although the courtyard looked inconspicuous, the personal disciple was very respectful when he entered. He cautiously walked to the backyard. At the same time, in the backyard, a young man wearing the robe of the Sun Saint sect's prospective Holy Son was meditating with his eyes closed. He respectfully came to the prospective Holy Son and didn't dare to disturb him. After waiting for about half an hour, the prospective Holy Son slowly opened his eyes and said indifferently, "What's the matter?" "Senior brother, junior brother, The personal disciple obviously came to ask for help. He wasn't a match for Xiao Chen, so he could only ask the prospective Holy Son of the Sun Saint sect to take action. Therefore, he told the story with exaggerated details. Hearing this, the prospective Holy Son said indifferently, "Go and keep an eye on them. If they leave the 100,000 Flames territory, just inform me." Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. End of chapter. Chapter 831. The young man's name was Li Changel, and he was the first candidate of the Sun Saint sect. Hearing his words, the Sun Saint sect's direct disciple's face lit up, and he respectfully left the small courtyard. He didn't know that this direct disciple of the Sun Saint sect had already found Li Changel. After this direct disciple left, A middle-aged man dressed in simple clothes and with bruises on his face cautiously walked into the courtyard and cupped his hands towards Li Changle as he spoke. "Young master, everything is ready." Li Changle did not reply to the middle-aged man's words. Instead, he stood up slightly and walked out of the courtyard. However, when he passed by the middle-aged man, Li Changle stopped. Without saying anything, he directly slapped the middle-aged man in the face. His tone was still extremely indifferent as he spoke. "If you can't even do such a simple thing in the future, you can kill yourself if there's a next time." After speaking, Li Changle didn't wait for the middle-aged man's reply and directly left the small courtyard. Following Li Changle's departure, a hint of unwillingness and stubbornness flashed across the middle-aged man's eyes. However, it quickly disappeared and was replaced by a lifeless appearance. It was as if he had become a walking corpse. If Xiao Chun was here, he would definitely be furious. This was because the middle-aged man was none other than his father, Xiao Qing. He didn't know why Xiao Qing had become Li Changle's servant, but it wasn't hard to tell from the brief scene that Xiao Qing wasn't doing well. Under Li Changle's command, Xiao Qing wasn't even a servant, but more like a slave. Of course, Xiao Chun didn't know all of this. At this moment, Xiao Chun had already led Qin Shuru and Long Qing deep into the 100,000 fire territory. They didn't stop at the periphery and went straight to the core of the 100,000 fire territory. In terms of size, the 100,000 fire territory wasn't as large as the Wind Plains. Therefore, it only took Xiao Chun and the others a day to enter the core of the 100,000 fire territory. In addition, the location of the heavenly fire wasn't difficult to find, so it didn't take much effort for Xiao Chun and the others to find the location of the heavenly fire. A circular fireball, about 100 meters in diameter, was suspended in the air, surrounded by raging flames that were several feet high. This was the source of the heavenly fire, and the temperature here was much higher than anywhere in the 100,000 fire territory. Looking at the heavenly fire in front of him, Xiao Xing's figure floated out of Xiao Chen's body and said calmly, "Boy, it's very dangerous to temper your body with the heavenly fire. You must be careful. In order to break through the refined physique's second level, Jade Viscera, one must use heavenly flames to refine their body. However, using this method was very dangerous. The slightest carelessness would result in one being incinerated into nothingness." Xiao Chen nodded seriously when he heard Xiao Xing's words. He knew that he could not afford to be careless while tempering his body with the heavenly fire. They didn't need heavenly fires, but they didn't need heavenly fires. Of course, it was still possible to use the flames around the heavenly fire to temper their bodies. After all, there were only benefits and no disadvantages. Xiao Chen was about to enter the heavenly fire after he was done with his preparations. However, at that moment, a figure slowly emerged from the heavenly fire hovering in the sky. Xiao Chen and the others frowned slightly when they saw the figure. There was someone inside the heavenly fire? They didn't think of this at all. Because it was just a vague figure, they didn't know who it was. But not long after, the figure slowly walked out of the heavenly fire and appeared in front of Xiao Chen and the others. Xiao Chen was afraid at first because he didn't know the person's identity. But when he saw the person's face, Xiao Chen was stunned. "Big brother!" After being stunned for a while, Xiao Chen called out with uncertainty. Hearing Xiao Chen's words, the young man who walked out of the heavenly fire also came back to his senses. A smile appeared on his face. He then leaped up and came directly in front of Xiao Chen, saying excitedly, "Third brother and second sister? What are you doing here?" The person who walked out of the heavenly fire was Chun Ling. They didn't expect to meet Chun Ling here. After the initial shock, the three of them hugged each other happily. After hugging for a while, Xiao Chen asked Chun Ling, "Big brother, what are you doing here?" "Oh, I came here half a year ago to use the heavenly fire to cultivate. I was just about to leave, but I didn't expect you to come." Chun-Ling was also here to use the heavenly fire to cultivate. However, he didn't use the heavenly fire to temper his body. Instead, he used it to recover his cultivation. Chun-Ling's cultivation method was very special. Shao Chun knew this, so Shao Chun didn't continue to ask him. After chatting for a while, Shao Chun noticed that Chun-Ling's cultivation had also reached the beginning of the Tao Master realm. He was the same as Long Qing and himself. Shao Chun had an opportunity, and Long Qing had the bloodline of the dragon tribe. However, Chun-Ling's cultivation wasn't slower than the two of them. Shao Chun and Long Qing weren't surprised. After all, the two of them knew that Chun-Ling was the reincarnation of a powerful person. His cultivation speed was already heaven-defying. In other words, Chun-Ling wasn't cultivating at all. He was recovering. It was even more unbelievable that Shao Chun could catch up with Chun-Ling's recovery speed. Therefore, after noticing that Shao Chun's cultivation had also reached the beginning of the Tao Master realm, Chun-Ling was surprised. Third brother, it seems that you've had a lot of opportunities over the years. You've already reached the beginning of the Tao Master realm. Chun-Ling looked at Shao Chun and said with a smile. Shao Chun's cultivation speed shocked Chun-Ling. In response, Shao Chun just smiled and briefly described his experience over the years. After talking about his experience, Shao Chun looked at Chun-Ling and asked, "By the way, big brother, where have you been all these years?" "Me? At first, I was sent to the Heaven Saint continent and cultivated there for a few years. Then, I came to the Sun Saint sect. Along the way, I cultivated on my own and didn't join any of the local sects in the Tianhe continent. This time, I came to the 100,000 Flames territory to cultivate." Hearing this, Chun-Ling replied. Just like Long Qing, Chun-Ling had spent the past few years alone, crossing 2 continents. Hearing this, Shao Chun also knew that as the reincarnation of a powerful figure, Chun-Ling was almost the same as Long Qing. He didn't need anyone to teach him. As long as he had enough spiritual qi, he could continue to break through his cultivation. Chun-Ling's experience was very simple, but they were naturally quite happy to meet here. After chatting for a while, Shao Chun finally said to Chun-Ling, "Big brother, this time you don't have to leave. After my physical body breaks through, you can come back to the Ancient Saint sect with us. Something big will happen in the Tianhe continent soon. If we stay together, we can take care of each other." Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. End of chapter. Chapter 832. Shao Chun took the initiative to invite Chun-Ling previously. Long Qing had already agreed with Shao Chun that after the Sun Saint sect matter was over, Long Qing would follow Shao Chun back to the Ancient Saint sect. Now that he had met Chun-Ling, Shao Chun naturally would not let him act alone. After all, the demon race was about to arrive. He did not say what was going to happen. After all, Shao Xing had already said that the matter of the demon race should not be made public for the time being. Otherwise, it would cause panic, which would not be good. Therefore, Shao Chun only said that something big was going to happen, but did not say what it was exactly. However, after hearing Shao Chun's words, Chun-Ling smiled and said, "Third brother, are you talking about the demon race?" Shao Chun did not say it, but Chun-Ling knew. Hearing this, Shao Chun was slightly stunned. Not only Shao Chun, even Qin Shuru and Shao Xing were the same. Other than the saints, no one knew that the demon race was about to invade. Even a holy son like Chun Yu did not know, but how did Chun-Ling know? It was impossible that the saints had told him. After all, Chun-Ling was alone and was not a disciple of the Ancient Saint sect. Facing the doubts of the few people, Chun-Ling explained unhurriedly. "I can feel it. Although the demon qi coming from the Saint Yin sect is not strong, I can still feel it." Indeed, no one told Chun-Ling had come out on his own. Of course, saying that he felt it was actually nonsense. The reason why Chun-Ling knew that the demon race was about to attack was entirely because he was not unfamiliar with the demon race. In fact, it could be said that he understood it very well. It was precisely because of this understanding that Chun Ling sensed that the demon race was about to attack from the clues. After hearing Chun Ling's words, although he knew that it was just a perfunctory answer, Shao Chun did not pursue the matter. He took the initiative to change the topic and said, "Since Big Brother already knows, then follow us back to the ancient saint sect. All right, when you're done, we'll return to the ancient sacred sect together." Chun Ling agreed very readily when he heard Shao Chen's words. Seeing that Chun Ling had agreed, Shao Chen smiled and said a few words to Shao Xing, Qin Shuru, and Long Qing before entering the heavenly flame. After handing Qin Shuru and Long Qing over to Chun Ling and Shao Xing to take care of, Shao Chen began to temper his body with heavenly fire in order to break through the second layer of the tempered body, the Jade Organs realm. After Shao Chen entered the heavenly fire, Chun Ling also suggested that Qin Shuru and Long Qing use the flames outside the heavenly fire to temper their bodies. This was beneficial to the two women. Naturally, the two women would not reject Chun Ling's suggestion. Then, they found two places outside the heavenly fire to sit down and close their eyes to cultivate. Shao Chen, Qin Shuru, and Long Qing began to cultivate one after another. As a result, only Chun Ling and Shao Xing were left with nothing to do. Shao Xing was only a strand of Saint Soul, so it was impossible for him to withstand the tempering of the heavenly fire. Chun Ling had already completed the cultivation of the heavenly fire, so there was no need for him to continue. The two of them had nothing to do, and Chun Ling did not seem too surprised when he saw Shao Xing. In response, Shao Xing took the initiative to ask, "You've seen me before in the heavenly Qin continent, right?" "Yes, I've seen you before." Hearing this, Chun Ling did not hide it and nodded frankly. "Then you're not surprised?" Shao Xing asked. "There's nothing to be surprised about. As long as a strand of Saint Soul is not destroyed, there's hope of resurrection. Although the hope is very slim, it's not impossible," Chun Ling said. Chun Ling seemed to have guessed everything. Regarding this, Shao Xing was also curious. From the first time he saw Chun Ling, Shao Xing felt that there was something strange about Chun Ling. His movements did not seem like the style of the younger generation. Moreover, there was a faint power of law surrounding Chun Ling. It seemed like they were chatting casually, but after a while, Shao Xing suddenly thought of something. He looked at Shao Xing and said with a smile, "I know. You must have been reincarnated through possession, right? Some almighty figures with exceedingly high cultivation had the ability to be reincarnated through possession. Although in this way they would lose all their cultivation, but their memories could be preserved." Shao Xing had once seen such an introduction in an ancient book. Moreover, there were records of almighty figures being reincarnated through possession in the Tianhe continent. However, in order to be reincarnated through possession, one's cultivation had to at least reach the quasi-saint realm. Saints could not be reincarnated through possession. In other words, Chun Ling's cultivation in his previous life had at least reached the quasi-saint realm. Shao Xing had seen through Chun Ling's secret. Regarding this, Chun Ling was not surprised. He only smiled slightly and said, "That's all in the past. It's not worth mentioning." He did not deny Shao Xing's guess, but Chun Ling did not want to be entangled in this matter too much. Shao Xing naturally would not pursue this matter. However, after confirming that Chun Ling was an almighty reincarnated person, Shao Xing felt like he had been cursed. Shao Chen did not know what to say. Motherf ***, why were the people around him all so abnormal? Also, how could there be so many geniuses in the Tianqian continent all of a sudden? It should be known that not to mention the women around Shao Chen, the ice god physique, and the moon god physique were the top special physiques in any continent. With such special physiques, as long as the two women did not die, they would definitely become strong. This was a matter of certainty, and it was also the blessing of the heavens for them. Other than the two women, Shao Chen's brother and sister, one was a pure-blooded dragon, and the other was the reincarnation of an almighty who had at least reached the quasi-saint realm. In fact, Xiao Xing guessed that Chun Ling's previous life was not just a quasi-saint. It was very likely that he was even more terrifying than a quasi-saint. It was not an exaggeration to say that the people around Xiao Qin were simply more terrifying than the one before. Furthermore, Xiao Xing could clearly feel that when everyone was together, Xiao Qin was the center. Even Chun Ling, the reincarnation of an almighty, similarly listened to Xiao Qin's words. Just how strong did a person's luck have to be able to gather such a group of monsters around him? It should be known that Chun Ling, Long Qing, and the others would definitely reach the level of a saint within a few years. Xiao Xing's heart was filled with doubts. As if he had seen through his thoughts, Chun Ling, who was at the side, seemed to be talking to himself. Third brother is a person with great luck. Furthermore, for us to be together with third brother, it can be said that it is fate. Therefore, regardless of whether it is me or second sister, although our identities are special, we are willing to surround third brother's side. Chun Ling muttered to himself. At this point, Chun Ling closed his eyes and did not speak anymore. Seeing this, Xiao Xing did not speak again. Xiao Chun was a person with great luck. Xiao Xing believed that Xiao Xing was a person with great luck. However, from Chun Ling's words just now, there seemed to be something that he did not say. Perhaps he knew something, but it was just not the time yet. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. This chapter ends. Chapter 833. Chun Ling did not say anything more, and Xiao Xing also closed his eyes to rest. Both of them sat cross-legged with their eyes closed and did not speak. However, Xiao Xing was still surprised by the people around Xiao Qin. Each one was more abnormal than the other. They were either top special physiques or pure-blooded dragons. There was even a reincarnated almighty. Of course, the most abnormal one was Xiao Qin. The heavenly sword embryo and the tempered battle body were both top items. Needless to say, the heavenly sword embryo was not even worth mentioning. Even the tempered battle body was something that Xiao Xing could not see through. This body tempering technique was indeed unfathomable. He did not know who created this body tempering technique and what level his cultivation had reached. Just as everyone began to close their eyes to cultivate, Xiao Qin, who was in the heavenly fire, had already begun to temper his body according to the method of the tempered battle body. It was another pain that was worse than death. It was even more painful than when he first started cultivating the tempered battle body. After all, it was the heavenly fire. Tempering the body in the heavenly fire was already extremely painful. Furthermore, Xiao Qin had to follow the method of the tempered battle body and take the initiative to draw the heavenly fire into his body to temper his internal organs. Xiao Qin was asking for trouble. Taking the initiative to draw the heavenly fire into his body was definitely something that only a madman would do. To be honest, although the tempered battle body was terrifying, it was not something that anyone could cultivate. Even if the requirements were met, one must have great perseverance. Otherwise, even if it was given to you, you would not dare to cultivate it. He gritted his teeth and persevered. His face was flushed red. He felt as if his entire body was about to be roasted. His internal organs felt as if they were about to melt. Every time he broke through the tempered battle body, it could be said to be a painful transformation. If he could endure it, he would take another step forward. If he could not endure it, he could only die. He had seen the terror of the earth fire before. However, compared to the heavenly fire, the earth fire was clearly child's play. It was not worth mentioning at all. His entire body seemed to be burning from the inside out. Under such painful perseverance, Xiao Qin operated the tempered battle body while secretly persevering. Xiao Qin didn't know how much time had passed. Anyway, he didn't have any concept of time. His internal organs were constantly changing as the heavenly fire tempered him. Vaguely, Xiao Qin's internal organs began to emit bursts of golden light. This golden light seemed to be invulnerable. Under the tempering of the heavenly fire, Xiao Chen's internal organs were much stronger than before. Once his internal organs turned from gold to jade white, the tempered battle body would be considered to have successfully broken through to the second level of the jade organs realm. Xiao Chen would then be immune to all poisons, and his physical strength would also improve by leaps and bounds. He was not sure how strong the second stage of the Jade Viscera realm was, but he was sure that it would not disappoint him. Under the scorching heat of the heavenly fire, Xiao Chen's internal organs turned from a golden color to a jade-white color. He was close to breaking through to the second tier of the jade internal organs realm. Xiao Chen didn't know how long he persevered. In any case, his entire body was already numb. He couldn't even cry out in pain. However, under such perseverance, the tempered battle body finally came to the point of breaking through. A terrifying blood qi rose from Xiao Chen's body. This was the sign of the tempered battle body breaking through. Compared to before, the blood qi in Xiao Chen's body had increased by at least 3 times. Even some half-saints would find it difficult to achieve such a terrifying blood qi. When the terrifying blood qi spread, Chun Ling and Xiao Xing opened their eyes at the same time. Shock flashed through their eyes. What kind of body refining cultivation method is third brother cultivating? How can it be so terrifying? Chun Ling said in surprise. As the reincarnation of an almighty, Chun Ling's vision was very high. Although he didn't know where Chun Ling's hometown was, he could tell from the ninth heaven sword finger that he gave to Xiao Chen that Chun Ling's hometown was definitely a continent of a higher level than the Tianhe continent. Otherwise, it would be impossible to have a martial skill like the ninth heaven sword finger. However, even with such a high standard, at this moment, Chun Ling was still shocked by Xiao Chen. What kind of body-refining technique could have such a terrifying power of qi and blood? Of course, Chun Ling still didn't know that Xiao Chen's tempered battle body had only broken through to the second stage of the Jade Organs realm. There was still a long way to go before he could truly cultivate the tempered battle body. Otherwise, he would be even more shocked. Compared to Chun Ling, Xiao Xing was much less surprised. After all, he knew how terrifying the tempered battle body that Xiao Chen cultivated was and was already prepared. But even so, when he truly felt the blood qi that erupted after the tempered battle body broke through to the second stage of the Jade Organs realm, Xiao Xing still secretly exclaimed. As expected of the number 1 body refining cultivation method in the Tianhe continent. It's just the second stage, and it already has such a terrifying blood qi. I don't know what kind of transformation the body will have if it is completely cultivated. It was hard to imagine how powerful Xiao Chen's body would be if he could successfully cultivate the tempered battle body. Just as Xiao Xing and Chun Ling were secretly shocked, Xiao Chen, who was inside the heavenly fire, suddenly opened his eyes. A golden light flashed in his eyes. He had finally succeeded in breaking through. At this moment, Xiao Chen only felt that his body was filled with power. Compared to before, his current body could be described as terrifying. His body didn't change much, but his strength had increased by several times. Exhaling a mouthful of turbid qi, Xiao Chen said softly, "I've finally broken through." After successfully breaking through, Xiao Chen felt relieved. At the same time, his strength had taken a qualitative leap. Now, Xiao Chen didn't put those prospective holy sons in the Tianhe continent in his eyes. Even if he didn't dare to say that he could defeat a holy son, he should have no problem protecting himself. After all, with his powerful body, unless it was a very fatal or serious injury, Xiao Chen's life would not be threatened. A powerful body represented a rich vitality. This was also why those body cultivators who mainly cultivated their bodies often had much stronger vitality than ordinary warriors. This was also the benefit of a powerful body. Exhaling a mouthful of turbid qi, Xiao Chen slowly got up. This trip to the Sun Saint sect was finally completed. Then, Xiao Chen stepped out of the heavenly fire. After breaking through the second stage of the Jade Organ's realm, Xiao Chen clearly felt that the effect of the heavenly fire on him was minimal. There wasn't much meaning in continuing to stay here to cultivate. Therefore, Xiao Chen planned to return home and return to the ancient saint sect. Please collect, please vote, please recommend. End of chapter. Chapter 834. After successfully breaking through to the second level of the Jade Organ's realm, Xiao Chen slowly walked out of the heavenly fire. Seeing Xiao Chen again, Chen Ling could clearly feel that there was a faint pressure unconsciously being emitted from Xiao Chen's body. This pressure did not come from his cultivation, but from Xiao Chen's physical body. Because he had just broken through, Xiao Chen could not control the power of his physical body very well. With a slight smile, Xiao Chen jumped down and landed in front of Chen Ling and Xiao Sheng. He looked at Xiao Sheng and said with a smile, "Ancestor, how long did it take me to break through this time?" In the heavenly fire, Xiao Chen had no concept of time at all. The unbearable pain made Xiao Chen unable to care about anything else. Hearing this, Xiao Sheng smiled and said, "It's already been 2 months." He had actually stayed in the heavenly fire for 2 months. Hearing this, Xiao Chen was a little surprised. He felt that he had not been cultivating in the heavenly fire for that long. It took him 2 months to successfully break through to the second level of the Jade Organ's realm. After being stunned for a moment, Xiao Chen smiled and said, "It's been 2 months. It's about time. Let's return to the ancient saint sect." Preparing to return to the ancient saint sect, no one had any objections. Afterwards, they called Qin Shuru and Long Qing, and the group headed out of the 100,000 Flames territory. Of course, Xiao Xing also returned to Xiao Chen's body. Before he was completely revived, it was better for Xiao Xing not to expose himself. Compared to when they first came, there was one more person, and that was Chen Ling. The group of 4 headed towards Heavenly Fire City. If they wanted to leave the Sun Saint sect, they could only go back the way they came and take the transportation array. However, just as Xiao Chen and the others were about to leave, the direct disciple of the Sun Saint sect was waiting at the gate of Heavenly Fire City with several other disciples. Everyone's faces were gloomy, especially the personal disciple in the lead. He had already waited here for more than 2 months, but he still hadn't seen Xiao Chen and the others appear. He still couldn't forget Long Qing's peerless beauty. At the same time, he wanted to take revenge, but Xiao Chen didn't appear. Damn it, it's already been 2 months. Could it be that this brat died in the 100,000 Flames domain? The direct disciple's face darkened as he viciously thought to himself. Yi Futian did not know what kind of deep hatred there was for this personal disciple to guard here for 2 whole months, just because Xiao Chen slapped him? It could be seen that this person was very narrow-minded. It could be said that he had completely lost his patience. Not only him, but the other core disciples of the Sun Saint sect were also like this. However, this personal disciple still didn't have the intention to give up. The anger in his heart couldn't be dispelled. Just as this personal disciple's face was extremely gloomy, suddenly, 4 young men and women slowly walked towards the city gate from afar. There were 2 men and 2 women. Seeing these 4 people, the personal disciple of the Sun Saint sect immediately became spirited. Weren't these people Xiao Chen and the others that he had been waiting for? The anger and resentment that he had accumulated over the past 2 months could finally be unleashed at this moment. It was as though he had picked up a treasure. This personal disciple immediately jumped 10 meters into the air. He excitedly turned his head to look at the person beside him and said, Quickly go back and inform Senior Brother Li Changle. Tell him that the brat has appeared. Ask him to quickly come to the city gate." Although he was angry, this personal disciple didn't foolishly rush up. He already knew that he was no match for Xiao Chen, so he could only rely on Senior Brother Li Changle. As the first candidate of the Sun Saint sect, he couldn't do it. Senior Brother Li Changle wouldn't be able to deal with this brat. After hearing this direct disciple's order, The disciple by the side immediately flew into the city and went to inform Senior Li Changle. Not long after this personal disciple left, Xiao Chen and the others also arrived at the city gate unhurriedly. Just as they were about to enter the city, that personal disciple directly led people to block the path of Xiao Chen and the others. Seeing this personal disciple, Xiao Chen's expression didn't change as he said indifferently, "It's you again? Like a ghost that won't go away." Although it had been 2 months, Xiao Chen still recognized this personal disciple. It was originally a very small matter that Xiao Chen didn't take to heart, but who would have thought that he would meet him here again? Moreover, looking at this personal disciple's appearance, it seemed that he had been waiting here for a long time. For such a trivial matter, this person could actually guard Sky Flame City for 2 months. That was why Xiao Chen said that he was like a ghost that wouldn't go away. However, hearing Xiao Chen's words, this personal disciple's face darkened. "Humph, brat, you dare to attack the people of the Sun Saint sect. Do you think this matter will be settled just like that?" Obviously, he wouldn't let this matter go. In this regard, Xiao Chen only felt that it was a little troublesome, but since trouble had already come knocking on his door, there was nothing he could do. At most, he would just fight again. Anyway, this guy was asking for a beating, so he couldn't blame anyone. "Third brother, who is this guy?" Chun Ling didn't know this personal disciple. At this time, when he heard this, he also asked Xiao Chen curiously. "Nothing, just an idiot who is itching for a beating." Hearing Chun Ling's words, Xiao Chen said indifferently. He didn't put this personal disciple in his eyes at all. However, just as Xiao Chen finished speaking, Li Changle's figure appeared in Sky Flame City. At the same time, there was a middle-aged man in ragged clothes beside Li Changle. This middle-aged man was none other than Xiao Chen's father, Xiao Qing. At this moment, Xiao Qing's appearance was much more miserable than before. Li Changle's eyes also flashed with anger. Previously, when he received the news from this personal disciple, Li Changle was originally punishing Xiao Qing. The reason was very simple. Xiao Qing didn't do what he had arranged. It could be said that he had beaten Xiao Qing up. After that, Li Changle directly brought Xiao Qing along. At the same time, he also punched and kicked Xiao Qing on the way and scolded him angrily. Now, they were already outside the city. In front of Xiao Chen and the others, Li Changle still slapped Xiao Qing's face and shouted angrily, "You're simply a piece of trash. You can't even do a small thing. What's the use of keeping you? Go and die." The more he scolded, the angrier he became. Then, Li Changle lifted his leg and kicked towards Xiao Qing. However, to everyone's surprise, Li Changle's kick didn't hit Xiao Qing. Instead, it was blocked by someone. Xiao Chen's figure appeared in front of Li Changle and blocked Li Changle's kick. At the same time, Xiao Chen's eyes were burning with anger. At the same time, a terrifying killing intent began to rise from Xiao Chen's body. When Li Changle appeared just now, Xiao Chen noticed him. After all, Li Changle was wearing the prospective Holy Sun's robe of the Sun Saint sect. However, when Xiao Chen shifted his gaze to the middle-aged man beside Li Changle, Xiao Chen immediately became angry. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendation. Chapter 835. Xiao Chen's eyes flickered with rage. He hadn't given up on searching for Xiao Qing's whereabouts, but unfortunately, he hadn't obtained any information. Who would have thought that Xiao Qing would actually be in the Sun Saint sect? However, none of this was important. It didn't matter why Xiao Qing had appeared here or what Xiao Qing had done. Xiao Chen had seen Li Changle hit Xiao Qing with his own eyes. Just this point alone was enough to make Li Changle a dead man. Not only Xiao Chen, but Qin Shiru, Chun Ling, and Long Qing were also brimming with killing intent. What was laughable was that Li Changle still didn't know who Xiao Chen was. When Xiao Chen blocked his kick, Li Changle's expression was cold. "Who are you? Do you want to die?" In the Sun Saint sect, apart from a few people, no one dared to interfere in Li Changle's business. However, Shao Chen ignored him and turned to look at Shao Qing, who was also in a daze. "Father, I'm late." Shao Qing also didn't expect to meet Shao Chen here. It wasn't just Shao Chen, Qin Shuru, Long Qing, and Chun Ling were also present. Hearing Shao Chen's words, a line of clear tears flowed from Shao Qing's eyes. He wanted to say something, but he didn't know what to say. Everything happened too suddenly. The father and son were speechless. At the same time, the direct disciple of the Sun Saint sect quickly walked over to Li Changel and said respectfully, "Senior brother, it's this kid." The direct disciple was already laughing in his heart. It wasn't easy to ask Li Changel for help, but now Shao Chen had taken the initiative to provoke Li Changel. How could Li Changel let him go? As if he could already see the scene of Shao Chen being trampled by Li Changel, the direct disciple laughed in his heart. Hearing his words, a trace of killing intent flashed through Li Changel's eyes as he said indifferently, "Looks like he's really a reckless fellow." From the beginning to the end, Li Changel didn't put Shao Chen in his eyes. This was normal. After all, he was the first candidate of the Sun Saint sect. Except for those saints and saintesses, he didn't put anyone in his eyes. Even if Yuan Lin came, he wouldn't be afraid. At worst, no one could do anything to each other. It was impossible for Shao Chen to be the Holy Sun, so Li Changel was not afraid. While Li Changel and Shao Chen were talking, Shao Chen had already handed Shao Qing over to Qin Shi. Then, he turned to look at Li Changel. The anger in his eyes had gradually subsided, but it was replaced by a strong murderous intent. "Cherner, forget it, forget it." Nobody knew a son better than his father. Shao Qing naturally knew what Shao Chen wanted to do. However, knowing Li Changel's combat strength and identity, Shao Qing also planned to keep the peace, afraid that Shao Chen would suffer some losses. However, after hearing Shao Qing's words, Shao Chen just said indifferently, "Father, don't worry. I'm here for everything." "That's right, old thing. Do you think you can forget it just because you say so?" "None of them will survive today," Li Changel, who was standing opposite of Shao Chen, said coldly as Shao Chen finished speaking. Li Changel also didn't intend to let Shao Chen go. As soon as he finished speaking, Shao Chen didn't hesitate and directly punched out. It seemed like an ordinary punch, but the power contained in it was enough to make people tremble in fear. After the tempered battle body broke through the second stage of the Jade Organ stage, Shao Chen's physical strength was completely different from before. Facing Shao Chen's punch, Li Changel wasn't a mediocre person. He immediately felt the terrifying power coming from Shao Chen's fist. His face immediately changed, and he couldn't help but cry out. He was very surprised that Shao Chen had such terrifying strength, but Shao Chen didn't talk nonsense and didn't give Li Changel a chance to speak. He directly punched out. Facing Shao Chen's punch, Li Changel didn't dare to take it head-on. He dodged the punch in a flash. With a loud bang, Shao Chen blasted a huge deep pit in the ground. Along with this punch, several Sacred Sun sect disciples present were stunned. How is this possible? Shao Chen didn't use any martial skills or spiritual energy just now. He just relied on the strength of his physical body to have such power? The scene before them was completely beyond everyone's imagination. But in this regard, Shao Chen didn't have any hesitation. He moved and attacked Li Changel again. The two fought fiercely. As the first candidate of the Sacred Sun sect, Li Changel was completely suppressed by Shao Chen from the beginning. If it weren't for the fact that he didn't dare to face Shao Chen head-on, he would have been defeated long ago. Looking at the battle before him, the Sacred Sun sect's direct disciple, who was previously overbearing, was completely dumbfounded and said in disbelief, How is this possible? Senior brother Li is suppressed." Li Changel wasn't Shao Chen's opponent at all. Everyone could see this. Not only this direct disciple, but even Shao Qing was also stunned. He naturally didn't expect his son to be so strong. "Who is Li Changel?" As the first candidate of the Sacred Sun sect, Shao Qing was very clear about his combat strength. But such a genius was beaten like a dog in front of Shao Chen. Thinking that Shao Qing was still worried about Shao Chen, Qin Shuru also comforted him. "Father, don't worry. My husband can destroy such an ant with a wave of his hand." Qin Shuru, Long Qing, and Chen Ling didn't doubt Shao Chen's strength at all. A mere Li Changel was simply a piece of cake. There was no difficulty at all. It was precisely because they had absolute confidence in Shao Chen that the three of them didn't intend to attack at all. They just protected Shao Qing behind them to ensure his safety. The battle continued. Although Li Changel tried his best to dodge and escape, he was still injured by Shao Chen in the end. After being injured by Shao Chen, Li Changel's situation became even worse. His injuries became more and more serious after being hit by Shao Chen. In less than 100 breaths, Li Changel had already felt the aura of death constantly shrouding him. From the way Shao Chen attacked, this guy in front of him definitely wanted to kill him. Facing death, Li Changel was afraid. At the same time, he didn't expect Shao Chen to be so strong. Li Changel wasn't a match for him in terms of combat strength and didn't want to die. Therefore, he could only try his best to resist while shouting coldly, "Who are you? I'm the first candidate of the Sacred Sun sect. If you dare to kill me, the Sacred Sun sect won't let you go." With such combat strength, Shao Chen definitely couldn't be a nobody. At the same time, Li Changel felt that his status was noble. With his identity as the first candidate of the Sacred Sun sect, how could Shao Chen dare to kill him? He was still fantasizing about using his identity to threaten Shao Chen. Unfortunately, not to mention that he was the first candidate of the Sacred Sun sect, even if the Sacred Sun sect's Sacred Sun sect came, Shao Chen would still kill him without hesitation. At worst, he would borrow Shao Xing's strength again. Please add, please vote, please recommend. Chapter 836. He didn't care about Li Changel's threat at all. Bulsh *T first chosen. Even if he was the son of ancient Saint Tianyang, he would still die today. In the face of Li Changel's threat, Shao Chen didn't care at all. At the same time, the killing intent on his body increased, and his attacks became more ruthless. Feeling that Shao Chen's attacks were getting fiercer and fiercer, Li Changel completely panicked and shouted angrily again, "I don't care who you are. If you dare to hurt me, the Sun Saint clan won't let you go." He was still threatening Li Changel, but just as he was shouting, Shao Chen successfully seized the opportunity to deliver a fatal blow. He punched out, and his fist was like a dragon emerging from the sea. It broke through all of Li Changel's defenses and hit Li Changel's chest hard. The sound of bones cracking rang out. In an instant, Li Changel's sternum was completely shattered, and his whole chest was completely caved in. He spat out a mouthful of blood, and his whole body was directly blasted into the sky by the punch. He fell to the ground, and smoke and dust rose everywhere. Seeing this scene, the surrounding disciples of the Sun Saint clan were completely dumbfounded. No one dared to move. Everyone stared at the place where Li Changel fell. Slowly, the smoke and dust began to dissipate, and soon, Shao Chen and Li Changel's figures appeared in everyone's sight again. They saw Li Changel lying on the ground with a weak aura. Blood kept flowing out of the corners of his mouth and nostrils. Shao Chen's face was cold. He stepped on Li Changel's abdomen and looked at him indifferently. You can't kill me. I'm the first chosen of the Sun Saint clan." Li Changel said weakly as he was stepped on by Shao Chen. Hearing this, Shao Chen said indifferently, "Go to hell and tell that to the King of Hell." After saying that, without any hesitation, Shao Chen exerted force on his foot and crushed Li Changel's dantian. Li Changel spat out another mouthful of blood and struggled for a while. Then, his head tilted and Li Changel stopped breathing. There was no hesitation at all. Seeing Li Changel being killed with his own eyes, the Sun Saint sect's direct disciple screamed, "Ah! You killed Senior Brother Li. How dare you kill Senior Brotherly? You, faced with Li Changle's death, this personal disciple was clearly scared silly. Hearing his miserable scream, Xiao Chen turned his head to look. Although the killing intent in his eyes had faded a lot, it still did not dissipate. You all deserve to die too. Since he had killed Li Changle, he might as well get rid of these ants as well. After saying that, Xiao Chen once again perched on the ground. Seeing Xiao Chen rushing toward them, the first reaction of the disciples of the Sun Saint clan was to run. What a joke! This was a ferocious person who could kill Li Changle. How could they possibly be a match for him? They could not summon any fighting spirit at all. The first thing they chose to do was to turn around and run. However, with the strength of these people, how could they escape from Xiao Chen's hands? With a point of his finger, the sword light flashed and the Chun Jun sword finger was displayed, instantly piercing through the head of one of the disciples. After killing one person with a single finger, Xiao Chen did not stop. He pointed several fingers in succession, and in a moment, all the Sun Saint sect's disciples were killed, leaving only the direct disciple. Seeing that he was the only one left, the direct disciple was completely stunned. He knelt in front of Xiao Chen and kept crying and begging. However, Xiao Chen just said indifferently, "From the moment you came to Heavenly Flame City, the ending had already taken the initiative." After saying that, Xiao Chen was ready to attack, but at the same time, a terrifying pressure came from Heavenly Flame City, and at the same time, a loud shout was heard. "Stop!" It was the expert of the Sun Saint sect stationed in Heavenly Flame City who had arrived. However, Xiao Chen completely ignored him and still pierced through the direct disciple's forehead with one finger, killing him directly. In the end, the direct disciple was also killed by Xiao Chen. At the same time, a middle-aged man appeared in front of Xiao Chen, his eyes burning with rage. This middle-aged man was a half-saint deacon of the Sun Saint sect stationed in Heavenly Flame City, who was responsible for all the affairs of Heavenly Flame City. Previously, he had sensed the fluctuations of a battle outside the city and rushed here as soon as possible, but he was still a step too late. Looking around at the corpses of Li Changle and the other disciples, this half-saint deacon's heart trembled. Those disciples were not a big deal, but Li Changle was the first candidate chosen. Now that he had died here, how could the Sun Saint sect let it go? Perhaps even he would be implicated. Thinking of this half-saint deacon looked at Xiao Chen with a strong killing intent in his eyes. Now that things had come to this, he could only capture Xiao Chen and hand him over to the Sun Saint sect. The death of the first candidate chosen was definitely not a small matter. "Who are you? How dare you kill the first candidate chosen of my Sun Saint sect? You're courting death," he shouted coldly. Hearing this, Xiao Chen did not change his expression at all. His face was still cold as he said, "How could such trash become the first candidate chosen of the Sun Saint sect? And the first candidate chosen? I killed him to clean up the mess for your Sun Saint sect." Facing a half-saint expert, Xiao Chen still did not show the slightest fear. Of course, this was also because Xiao Chen had the ability to be fearless. Although the current Xiao Chen was far from being a match for a half-saint expert, don't forget that Xiao Xing was a great weapon in his body. In the past few years, Xiao Chen had been making progress, but Xiao Xing had not been idle. He had completely made up for this wisp of soul and transformed it into a complete saint soul. In this way, Xiao Xing could use more power. With the help of Xiao Xing's power, he might be able to compete with a half-saint expert. Seeing that Xiao Chen was so fearless, this half-saint expert shouted angrily, "You're courting death. Kneel down." The half-saint shouted angrily. At the same time, a terrifying pressure emanated from the half-saint expert and pressed toward Xiao Chen. A semi-saint had already comprehended the power of laws. Under the pressure of such might, Xiao Chen was naturally under great pressure. He wanted to use his pressure to force Xiao Chen to kneel down. However, just as this half-saint expert attacked, An equally terrifying aura soared from Xiao Chen's body and instantly broke through the half-saint expert's suppression. The aura that Xiao Chen emitted also contained a faint power of laws. Upon sensing the emergence of this aura, this half-saint expert's expression sank. You? Who exactly are you? Only a holy son or a saintess could possess such a terrifying aura. Therefore, this half-saint expert couldn't make up his mind. A holy son or a saintess was an existence that he couldn't afford to offend. Besides, if Xiao Chen was really a holy son or a saintess, his strength wouldn't be inferior to a half-saint expert like him. At the very least, it wouldn't be a problem for him to escape. Of course, this half-saint expert didn't know that this aura didn't actually come from Xiao Chen. Instead, it came from Xiao Sheng. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 837. Facing a half-saint expert, Xiao Chen didn't try to be brave. Instead, he caught Xiao Sheng's power. Feeling Xiao Chen's terrifying power, the half-saint expert frowned and hesitated for a moment. This half-saint expert planned to capture Xiao Chen directly and take him back to the Sun Saint sect for the other saints to deal with. However, facing Xiao Chen at this moment, he wasn't sure if he could successfully capture him. Of course, strength was one thing. Another thing was that he guessed Xiao Chen's identity. Being able to have such a cultivation at such a young age, Xiao Chen couldn't be an ordinary person. If Xiao Chen had some great background, then this half-saint expert would have to take the blame if he rashly injured Xiao Chen. These two reasons made this half-saint expert not dare to act rashly. Their eyes met. After a while, the half-saint expert took the initiative to restrain his aura and asked Xiao Chen, "You killed the first candidate of the Sun Saint sect. You must come with me to the Sun Saint sect." He didn't intend to attack again, but he couldn't let Xiao Chen go either. After all, Xiao Chen had killed so many disciples of the Sun Saint sect, including Li Chang'e, the first candidate of the Sun Saint sect. If he let Xiao Chen go, the Sun Saint sect would definitely punish him. Hearing this, Xiao Chen also retracted his aura and said faintly, "Okay, I'll go with you to the Sun Saint sect." He wasn't afraid of going to the Sun Saint sect at all. With that, Xiao Chen turned around and came to Xiao Qing and the others. He looked at Xiao Qing and said, "Father, come with me to the Sun Saint sect first. Then we'll go back." Xiao Chen said this very calmly. Hearing this, Xiao Qing naturally had no objection and immediately nodded. Xiao Chen was his son. Even if it was a dragon's pool or a tiger's den, Xiao Qing wouldn't shrink back at all. Seeing Xiao Qing nod, Xiao Chen looked at Qin Shuru, Long Qing, and Chen Ling facing Xiao Chen's gaze. The three of them also nodded. They weren't afraid of going to the Sun Saint sect either. After greeting everyone, Xiao Chen entered Sky Fire City under the personal guard of the half-saint expert. Together with him were the corpses of Li Chang'e and the others. Xiao Chen was very calm about going to the Sun Saint sect. He wasn't afraid that the Sun Saint sect would dare to do anything to him. First of all, the three saint sects had formed an alliance. Moreover, it was Li Chang'e who sought his own death. In addition, Qin Shuru was the last disciple of Ice Lotus Prime Saint. As for Xiao Chen, although he wasn't Randang Koziai's disciple, Randang Koziai wouldn't sit by and do nothing. Therefore, if the Sun Saint sect wanted to make things difficult for him, it would be equivalent to offending both the Heavenly Saint sect and the Ancient Saint sect. As long as Heavenly Saint sect wasn't dim-sighted, he wouldn't do such a stupid thing. Therefore, Xiao Chen wasn't worried at all about the final result of the Sun Saint sect. There was a transmission formation that led directly to the Sun Saint sect from Skyfire City. Without any delay, the group arrived at the Sun Saint sect under the guidance of the half-saint expert. The half-saint expert must have sent back the news in advance. Therefore, when Xiao Chen and the others arrived at the Sun Saint sect, a saint of the Sun Saint sect was already waiting for them. Perhaps it was because someone dared to kill the first prospective holy son of the Sun Saint sect, the saint didn't look good. At the same time, a faint killing intent constantly surrounded him. However, when he saw that it was Xiao Chen and the others who came out of the transmission formation, the saint was stunned at first. Then he looked at the half-saint expert and asked, "Are they the ones who killed Li Changel?" "Yes," the half-saint expert answered truthfully. Hearing this, the saint was depressed. He recognized Xiao Chen at a glance. Not only did he recognize Xiao Chen, but he also recognized Qin Shi. One of them was from the ancient saint sect, and the other was from the heavenly saint sect. Moreover, their identities weren't ordinary. To put it bluntly, they weren't inferior to the holy sons and holy daughters. If it was someone else who killed Li Changel, the saint would not hesitate to give the order to kill them. However, since it was Xiao Chen and the others who killed Li Changel, the matter was troublesome. As a saint, he naturally knew a lot of secret. He was very clear about the consequences if he killed Xiao Chen and Qin Shi. For a moment, he was in a dilemma. However, as a saint, he was also a shrewd person. He quickly came back to his senses and took the initiative to walk up to Xiao Chen. "Xiao Chen, why did you kill Li Changel?" Instead of directly attacking, he asked about the matter. Seeing this, the half-saint expert secretly rejoiced that he didn't choose to attack before. Seeing that the Lord Saint treated Xiao Chen with respect, it was obvious that this young man's identity wasn't simple. If Xiao Chen and the others didn't have an intimidating identity, the saint would have already attacked. However, now he actually asked about the matter with a pleasant expression. What did this prove? It proved that Xiao Chen and the others weren't simple people. In the face of the saint's inquiry, Xiao Chen truthfully told him what had happened. In the end, Xiao Chen said indifferently, "He deserved to die for insulting my father. Moreover, in my opinion, a person like Li Changel isn't worthy of being the prospective holy son of the Sun Saint sect. Leaving him alive would only bring shame to the Sun Saint sect." Until now, Xiao Chen didn't regret killing Li Changel. At the same time, he bluntly said that Li Changel wasn't worthy of being the prospective holy son at all. Hearing this, the saint's face darkened slightly. Although he knew that there were some problems with Li Changel's character, and that he wasn't very useful, Li Changel's talent and battle strength were real. He was able to become the first prospective holy son of the Sun Saint sect by relying on his own strength. Now that Xiao Chen had insulted Li Changel, in the saint's opinion, it was almost equivalent to saying that there was no one left in the Sun Saint sect. This naturally made the saint unhappy. Therefore, after hearing Xiao Chen's words, the saint's face darkened and he said angrily, "All right, I understand. All right, I already know what happened, but you can't leave the Sacred Sun sect for the time being. I still need to ask Master about this and wait for him to make a decision himself." After saying that, without waiting for Xiao Chen to reply, the saint directly said to the half-saint experts at the side, "Take them away and treat them well." This was equivalent to directly putting Xiao Chen and the others under house arrest. Hearing this, Xiao Chen didn't resist and only said indifferently, "I believe that Prime Saint Tianyang can distinguish right from wrong." After saying that, he was led away by the half-saints of the Sun Saint sect. At the same time, the saint also disappeared in a flash. Obviously, he was going to report this matter to Prime Saint Tianyang. Just as Xiao Chen thought, the Sun Saint sect didn't dare to casually attack them. However, on the way, Qin Shi was still a little worried and asked, "Husband, do you want me to inform Master? Please add me to your collection, monthly vote, recommend me." Chapter 838. Hearing Qin Shi ask if he should inform his master, Ancient Saint Ice Lotus, Xiao Chen smiled and said, "Sure, but I believe that Ancient Saint Heavenly Sun should know how to deal with it. Moreover, don't think too highly of the prospective Holy Sun. After all, he is not a Holy Sun. Sun Sacred Sect has no reason to offend both the Heavenly Saint Sect and the Ancient Saint Sect for a prospective Holy Sun, let alone someone like Li Changel." Xiao Qin didn't think that ancient Saint Heavenly Sun would make a big fuss over someone like Li Changel. Perhaps Li Changel's talent was really good, but in Xiao Qian's opinion, Li Changel had no chance of becoming a holy son in this lifetime because of his character alone. To become a holy son, one not only needed great talent, but also a broad mind and broad vision. If all holy sons were like Li Changel, then it would be really bad. At least, among the holy sons that Xiao Qin had seen so far, none of them were narrow-minded, including the fourth holy son of Sun Sacred Sect, Jun Tong. Breadth of mind determined one's achievements, and breadth of vision determined one's height. This was what Xiao Qin had always believed. If one wanted to become a true powerhouse, talent alone was far from enough. This was also why those who could become quasi-saints in history, regardless of whether they were good or bad, were certainly not narrow-minded people. They were taken to a small courtyard. The environment was good, but the surroundings were closely monitored. Moreover, Xiao Qin and the others were not allowed to take half a step out of the courtyard. They were completely under house arrest. Xiao Qin didn't show the slightest resistance and calmly stayed in the courtyard. At the same time, in the depths of Sun Sacred Sect, in the cave of ancient Saint Heavenly Sun, the previous saint also truthfully told ancient Saint Heavenly Sun what had happened. Just like Xiao Qin, ancient Saint Heavenly Sun didn't show the slightest anger after hearing the whole story. He just said indifferently, "I've already noticed Li Changel. I've been paying attention to this Li Changel for a long time. This child is not someone who can achieve great things. Even if he can temporarily become the first candidate, he will be defeated by others sooner or later. If he dies, then so be it." He wasn't angry about Li Changel's death at all. When he heard Prime Saint Tianyang's words, he stood aside respectfully. "But Master, no matter what, Li Changel is still the prospective holy son of our Sun Saint Sect. He was killed just like that. Are we just going to let it go?" The saint's words were very obvious. Li Changel's death was nothing. This was also ancient Saint Tianyang's intention. However, this was related to the face of the Sun Sacred Sect. If they let Xiao Qin and the others go, what would the world think of the Sun Sacred Sect? For the sake of Sun Saint Sect's face, he naturally couldn't let Xiao Qin go so easily. Hearing this, Prime Saint Tianyang smiled faintly and said, "How about this? Tell the Heavenly Saint Sect and Ancient Saint Sect to send people to pick them up. This way, the world won't say anything." They couldn't let Xiao Qin and the others go, but they could ask the Heavenly Saint Sect and Ancient Saint Sect to send people to pick them up. Moreover, the people sent had to be at least saint. This way, in the eyes of outsiders, it was equivalent to the Heavenly Saint Sect and Ancient Saint Sect giving an explanation, and the Sun Sacred Sect's face could be saved. Hearing this, the saint also felt that this method was the best and respectfully nodded. Yes. Sure enough, Prime Saint Tianyang didn't make a big fuss. Soon, the saint also conveyed this decision to Xiao Qin and the others. Hearing this, Qin Shuru looked at Xiao Qin with a puzzled expression. Because when he asked Xiao Qin if he should inform Prime Saint Binglian, Xiao Qin said that he could. Now, the Sun Sacred Sect actually gave such an answer. Everything seemed to be within Xiao Qin's expectations. Facing Qin Shuru's puzzlement after the saint left, Xiao Qin said with a smile, "It's not strange. It's not strange. Think about it, it's not a secret that I killed Li Changel, but many people outside the Sky Fire City saw it, so this matter naturally can't be hidden. Since it can't be hidden and Sun Saint Sect has no intention of pursuing it, they naturally need a way out. These big sects all value face more than anything else." He had already guessed that the Sun Sacred Sect would ask the Heavenly Saint Sect and Ancient Saint Sect to send people to pick them up, so when Qin Shuru asked if he should inform Prime Saint Binglian, Xiao Qin didn't refuse. Not only Qin Shuru, but even Xiao Qin had already sent a message back to the Ancient Saint Sect. Presumably, the Ancient Saint Sect had already taken action. "Well, let's stay in the Sun Sacred Sect for 2 days. Don't worry, he said to Qin Shuru with a smile. He wasn't worried about what would happen next, and the Sun Sacred Sect indeed didn't make things difficult for Xiao Chen and the others. Except for forbidding them to leave the small courtyard, everything else was very good. Even the injuries on Xiao Qing's body were specially prepared by the Sun Sacred Sect for him to take. Xiao Chen hadn't seen Xiao Qing for a long time. In the next few days, it was rare for him to be by Xiao Qing's side. And from Xiao Qing's mouth, Xiao Chen also knew why he became Li Changle's slave. Originally, Xiao Qing was directly sent to the Sun Sacred Sect and then cultivated in the Sun Sacred Sect. Once, he heard that the 100,000 fire domain of the Sun Sacred Sect was a good place to gain experience, so Xiao Qing came to Heavenly Flame City. But unexpectedly, Xiao Qing was intercepted by a group of roving bandits outside Heavenly Flame City. Fortunately, he was saved by Li Changle, who happened to pass by. He originally thought that Li Changle was his savior, but who would have thought that this Li Changle wasn't a good person at all? His ancestral home was in Heavenly Flame City, so he had his own family business in Heavenly Flame City. After saving Xiao Qing, Li Changle arranged for Xiao Qing to be a servant in Heavenly Flame City. Although he was called a servant, he was actually a slave. As long as Xiao Qing didn't do a good job, Li Changle would punch and kick him. Just like that, Xiao Qing stayed in Heavenly Flame City for 4 years. After knowing Xiao Qing's experience in these years, Xiao Chen also told Xiao Qing about the situation of his mother, Bai Ruyue. Hearing that Bai Ruyue had been arranged by Xiao Chen to stay in the Wu Empire of the ancient sacred state and wasn't in any danger, Xiao Qing was relieved. The days in the Sun Sacred Sect were very peaceful. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Xiao Chen could also accompany his father. 2 days passed in a row. On this day, someone suddenly came to visit. The people who came were Yan Xiong and Zhao Hufeng, who were acquaintances of Xiao Chen. These 2 people could be considered old acquaintances of Xiao Chen. He didn't know where they heard the news that he was in the Sun Sacred Sect, but the 2 of them came together. After taking a seat in the main hall, Xiao Chen took the initiative to cup his hands to Yan Xiong and said, "Senior brother Yan Xiong, brother Zhao, why are you here?" "Haha, we heard that junior brother Xiao is a guest in the Sun Sacred Sect, so we naturally came. No matter what, we have to be a good host." Hearing Xiao Chen's words, Yan Xiong laughed loudly. Hearing this, Xiao Chen also smiled and replied, "Senior brother Yan Xiong must be joking. I'm not here as a guest, I'm under house arrest. Please collect, please vote, please recommend. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.